Chapter 842. Tang Jing felt that it was unimaginable, as if he was dreaming. Could it be that Tian Chanzi had hidden his strength before, and this was the real him? No way! If he had been so powerful from the start, he would not have been controlled by 100 Change Star Lord in Mount Buzhou, and almost lost his life. Tian Chanzi had disappeared for so long. Could it be that some fortuitous encounter had happened to him during this period of time, and that was why his strength had increased by leaps and bounds? But this was too exaggerated. There was a certain limit to the increase of one's cultivation, and it was impossible to increase by too much without a limit. There must be a demon behind this abnormality. Tang Jing felt that something unknown must have happened during this period of time. Empyrean Fairy also saw Tian Chanzi, and frowned suspiciously. She had fought with Tian Chanzi before, and was very clear about his strength. Looking at his current strength, her heart was also stirred up, and she muttered to herself. Tian Chanzi did not say a word, and ignored Tang Jing as if he was a stranger. In his eyes there was only 100 Change Star Lord, and each of his moves was incomparably fierce. The bottom of the canyon was turned upside down, rocks swirled in the air, and Inchi soared to the sky. The ground was already covered with the corpses of demonic beasts, and there were also piles of white bones. It was like hell on earth, and coupled with the environment where the Inchi roared, it was really frightening. Integral Linger could not help but tremble, and said, "Master, what's wrong with him? Why does Linger feel that I don't recognize him?" Linger's perception was sharp, and her temperament was simple, so she made the most direct judgment. Tang Jing shivered, and thought that Linger was right. However, the most important thing now was not to find out what had happened to Tian Chanzi, but to deal with 100 Change Star Lord. 100 Change Star Lord also saw Tang Jing, and his pupils shrank, and said, "So it's you! The demon race's attack in the sea must have something to do with you, right?" Seeing that 100 Change Star Lord recognized him, Tang Jing nodded naturally and said, "So what? 100 Change Star Lord, you don't care about the lives of the people in this world, and you actually activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array without permission, and led the demon race back. You almost caused a great disaster and harmed the world. You are too ruthless." 100 Change Star Lord heard this, and laughed crazily, and said, "Haha, too ruthless? Humph, so what if those people died? Moreover, the people I killed when I activated the Mountain and River Blood Sacrifice Array were from the Japanese nation. A few decades ago, the Japanese nation invaded Huaxia. Don't tell me you still think it's a pity that their people died? 100 Change Star Lord, and the people of Huaxia, and Huaxia, Hua, and the Xiaxias. Huaxia. 100 Change Star Lord didn't care and said, "What do the lives of mortals have to do with me?" Tang Jing was furious. 100 Change Star Lord was a man. No wonder he broke Mount Buzhou. In his eyes there were no rules. Except for himself, other people's lives were like grass. This kind of person was an absolute scourge in the world. He didn't know why he didn't kill him directly back then, but imprisoned him. "It's a pity that I didn't bring back too many demons this time, and most of them were intercepted and destroyed by you. But those demons are chess pieces, and it doesn't matter if they die. My biggest gain is this." 100 Change Star Lord pointed at the bronze coffin in front of him proudly. "This is your biggest gain? What do you mean?" Tang Jing asked curiously. 100 Change Star Lord sneered and said, "Anyway, none of you can leave here today, so there's no harm in telling you. This bronze coffin hides a great secret, and if the demons didn't return, I wouldn't know this secret." Tang Jing was confused, but he also realized the seriousness of the situation. The so-called great secret mentioned by 100 Change Star Lord was definitely not a small matter. Tang Jing subconsciously looked at the bronze coffin, wondering what kind of great secret was hidden in it that made 100 Change Star Lord mobilize so many people. "What's the secret inside?" Tang Jing asked. "The secret that I've been searching for," 100 Change Star Lord said mysteriously. Seeing that Tang Jing still wanted to ask, he added, "It's a pity that the villainous heavens are against me. This Tian Chanzi actually followed me all the way here and ruined my plans. After saying this, 100 Change Star Lord glared at Tian Chanzi with hatred and regret. Tang Jing asked suspiciously, "How did he ruin your plans?" "The thing protecting the bronze coffin actually chose to merge with him, increasing his strength in an instant, and using his body to fight against me." Tang Jing was shocked. Tian Chanzi was not hiding his strength, but had really reached his current strength in a very short time. This was too incredible. The Empyrean fairy also stared at Tian Chanzi with burning eyes, trying to find an answer from him, but it was all in vain. Everything here was full of mystery, and even she did not know. In fact, although the Empyrean fairy had a special identity as the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven, she was trapped in the mountain river map by the Emperor of Heaven for some reason, so she did not know what had happened for a long time. Later, she escaped from the mountain river map and met Qin Shi Huang, who helped her unify the world. Later, she slept in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum for 1,000 years, so she knew very little about the outside world. Looking at the bronze coffin, she could not find any information related to it in her mind. But there was no doubt that this thing was extraordinary, and must not fall into the hands of 100 Change Star Lord. But as long as I open the bronze coffin, that power will naturally disappear, and he will no longer be a threat to me, 100 Change Star Lord said complacently. Roar! Tian Chanzi let out a roar and attacked 100 Change Star Lord again, who quickly dodged. Tian Chanzi, can you hear me? Looking at Tian Chanzi's crazy appearance, Tang Jing wanted to know what had happened to him. 100 Change Star Lord said that Tian Chanzi was being controlled, but what was controlling him? I want to know all these questions, so I called Tian Chanzi to see if he can answer. However, Tian Chanzi turned a deaf ear and continued to attack 100 Change Star Lord fiercely. Ha ha ha, you still want him to answer? He is already being controlled, just like a walking corpse. How can he answer your questions? 100 Change Star Lord laughed disdainfully. Tang Zheng's heart skipped a beat. The words walking corpse fiercely provoked him. Although he often bickered with Tian Chanzi, the two had deep feelings for each other. If not for Tian Chanzi, Tang Jing would not have everything he had today. He was afraid that he would have failed the college entrance exam, and then exploded and died at the age of 20. Therefore, he and Tian Chanzi had saved each other's lives. They were both very important people in each other's lives, and this kind of relationship could not be cut off. Tang Jing suddenly turned to Empyrean Fairy and asked, "Is there a way for him to recover?" Empyrean Fairy also stared at Tian Chanzi and said, "Didn't 100 Change Star Lord say that as long as we open the bronze coffin, the power in his body will disappear? Then let's open the bronze coffin." Tang Jing took a deep look at the bronze coffin. Although this suggestion was very risky, there was no other way. This was the only way to survive. He was willing to take this risk for Tian Chanzi. 100 Change Star Lord was entangled by Tian Chanzi. Hearing this, his face suddenly changed, and his thin body let out a hysterical roar. "Don't open the bronze coffin. It's mine. Don't even think about touching it." Tang Jing sneered and said, "You can't even protect yourself. What ability do you have to stop us?" 100 Change Star Lord was furious and shouted at the giant. "I didn't resurrect you to let you watch a good show. Stop them at all costs." Roar! The giant let out a long roar. Although it was still entangled by the black gas, it still rushed toward Empyrean Fairy without hesitation. Just now, he had suffered losses from Empyrean Fairy, so this time he was extra careful. Empyrean Fairy did not show any abnormality, and slowly landed. Bang! She stepped on the bronze coffin. The black gas on the bronze coffin quickly retreated in all directions, as if it had met its nemesis. Huh! Not only Tang Jing, but also Empyrean Fairy stared at her feet in surprise. She was already prepared to fight against the black gas. Now that she was stuck there, the black gas would not hurt her. 100 Change Star Lord's face suddenly changed, and he exclaimed, "Impossible! How did you do this? Who on earth are you?" Tang Jing laughed and said sarcastically, Didn't you say that no one could open my bronze coffin? Now it seems that is not necessarily true. 100 Change Star-Lord rolled his eyes and said angrily, If you want to die, open it. What do you mean? Tang Jing and Empyrean Fairy were stunned and stopped moving subconsciously. There is something very dangerous inside. Except for me, everyone else will die. 100 Change Star-Lord said solemnly. Tang Jing and Empyrean Fairy looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. We don't believe you. Stop him. 100 Change Star-Lord roared. The giant finally stood up and attacked Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy had already figured out the giant's combat strength, so she was not afraid. Her every move made the giant flustered, and the cliff of the canyon shook, causing rocks to fall. 100 Change Star-Lord was burning with anxiety as he looked at the battered and exhausted giant. However, he could do nothing as he looked at the corpses of the demonic beasts and the white bones on the ground. Seeing that the Heaven Monk was closing in again, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord roared, both of his hands pressed down in the air. Bang, 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 the corpses of the demonic beasts actually exploded, turning into a bloody mist, and the blood quickly gathered towards the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. He grabbed the air with his hands, and the blood mist turned into bloody claws. Puff! 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 The bloody claws left many wounds on Tian Chanzi's body, and some of them were so deep that his bones could be seen. However, Tian Chanzi did not feel anything and continued to attack 100 Change Star-Lord. Humph, you are courting death. Now I will use up a lot of my power to defeat you and stop those people. 100 Change Star-Lord made up his mind. Once the bloody claws were formed, their power increased greatly. The sky was filled with bloody claws, and Tian Chanzi was at a disadvantage. His body was also dyed red. Tang Jing looked at the scene, but there was nothing he could do. He focused on the bronze coffin. Chapter 843. The bronze coffin lay quietly on the ground, surrounded by black gas. Only the place where the Empyrean Fairy stood was free of the black gas. The giant viciously attacked the Empyrean Fairy, forcing her to leave the bronze coffin. Tang Jing and Linger were the only ones who could move freely. Linger watched from the side. I'm going to activate it, Tang Jing said in a deep voice. Linger worriedly warned, Master, be careful. Tang Jing nodded his head heavily, but he did not touch the bronze coffin with his hands. Instead, he raised War Soul and pierced it into the gap. Whoosh! The black gas was like a cat that had smelled the fishy smell of fish. It quickly scurried over and directly rushed towards the War Soul's sword. Tang Jing's spirit trembled. He quickly circulated his qi. His true qi surged. His sword qi was abundant. It intertwined with the black qi. They were equally matched. Tang Jing could clearly feel a bone-chilling power coming from the black qi, causing him to shiver uncontrollably. He gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. He thought to himself, I don't believe that I can't deal with you. With a sudden burst of strength, the bronze coffin actually loosened a little, and an earth-shattering yin qi seeped out, making Tang Jing feel as if he had fallen into an endless ice cave. He forced himself to endure the trembling of his soul and muttered to himself, What's inside? It's so cold. Could it be a corpse? This prehistoric heavenly tomb is a product of the ancient era. If it really was a corpse, it would have already rotted. No, he immediately remembered the Beast King and Qin Shi Huang. These powerful cultivators had ways to preserve their bodies, so there might be a lifelike corpse inside. Xiao Bai sensed Tang Jing's abnormality and bared his fangs at the bronze coffin as he growled, as if declaring his authority. Then, it opened its little mouth and spat out a stream of flames, which immediately enveloped the bronze coffin. Ah! Tang Jing was shocked. He didn't expect Xiao Bai to be so bold as to spit fire. Needless to say, as soon as the flames appeared, the bone-chilling feeling disappeared by a lot. The key was that the black gas seemed to have met its nemesis and retreated with whooshing sounds. Tang Jing suddenly had an idea and said, You still want to escape? Xiao Bai, trap this black gas. The giant bronze coffin was related to Tian Chanzi's life and death, so Tang Jing couldn't be careless. After giving the order, Xiaobai spat out a few more balls of flames, trapping all the black gas. The black gas struggled left and right in the flames, but it was unable to break through the defense of the flames. It was like a trapped beast, struggling futilely. Without the restriction of the black qi, Tang Zheng's strength increased greatly. With a ding sound, the War Soul sword bent slightly and finally opened up a large crack. The flames on the bronze coffin had already disappeared, so Tang Jing held the coffin lid with both hands and let out a low roar. The coffin lid was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Rise! Tang Jing used his strength and the coffin lid moved bit by bit. Stop! Tian Chanzi shouted with all his might. His voice was completely different from usual, giving off a creepy feeling. Before he finished speaking, he had already abandoned the 100-change Star Lord and attacked Tang Jing. The black gas in his hand changed shape and turned into a long spear. Whiz! The air surged and automatically divided into 2 rows. The long spear shot towards Tang Deng's back. Ling hurriedly shouted, Master, be careful! Then, she bravely blocked Tang Deng's back. Tang Zheng had an idea. He shouted and used all his strength. The War Soul sword bent to the limit and was about to break. Bang! The coffin lid flew up and hit the cliff with a muffled sound. Seeing that the long spear was about to pierce through Linger's chest, Xiaobai quickly transformed. His feet stepped on flames and even his body was burning with raging flames. Boom! A monstrous flame wrapped around the long spear. The long spear's attack decreased sharply and stopped in front of Linger, unable to advance any further. Linger's face was filled with determination. Even if the long spear did not stop, she would definitely not retreat half a step. The coffin lid opened and Tian Chanzi let out a blood-curdling scream. The long spear directly exploded and turned into nothingness. No one expected this scene. They could not help but be shocked. Even the 100-change Star Lord was dumbstruck. He stomped his feet hatefully. He actually beat me to it. Tang Jing could no longer care about the situation behind him. He stretched his neck and looked into the bronze coffin. When he saw the situation inside the coffin, his face changed greatly. His eyes widened and he was flabbergasted. It was as if he had seen a ghost. He took a few steps back before stopping. Everyone looked at his reaction in disbelief. They could not help but mutter in their hearts. What exactly did he see in the bronze coffin to have such a big reaction? Furthermore, it was obvious that he was frightened. Tang Zheng, what's wrong with you? Empyrean Fairy pushed back the giant and asked curiously. Linger also stared at Tang Jing, wondering why her master had such a big reaction. Even the 100-change Star Lord was not in a hurry to rush over to take a look. He wanted to know what was inside. In fact, he only knew a little about the situation inside the bronze coffin and did not know the details. Last time, when he was on the island nation, he used the Mountain River blood sacrifice array to welcome the return of the Devil Clan. Although there were only 100 of them, their cultivations were not weak. Furthermore, they brought him an unexpected news. It turned out that the return of the Devil Clan this time was to prepare for the return of the entire Devil Clan. Back then, when the Devil God returned, it did not have much of an effect. Therefore, the Devil Clan finally found a glimmer of hope this time. It turned out that the Devil Clan had accidentally discovered a secret of the Devil Clan's ancestor, and that was a huge bronze coffin. This huge bronze coffin was buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb in the 10,000 huge mountains. There was no reliable evidence as to who was buried in this huge bronze coffin, but one thing was certain. There was a huge secret hidden within, a secret that was enough to change this world. Originally, the 100-change Star Lord did not believe the words of the Devil Clan, but after the other party swore and even sent an elite to follow him back to the 10,000 huge mountains, he gradually believed it. As for the Devil Clan on that ship, it was just bait. The 100-change Star Lord had long since had a certain understanding of this modern society, and knew that his actions in the island nation could not be hidden from the authorities. Thus, he might as well build a plank road and secretly send those Devil Clan-s to their deaths, while he brought an elite devil clan to quietly return to the 10,000 huge mountains. The two sides worked together and investigated the entire way. In the end, they found this canyon in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. The devil clan was certain that the bronze coffin was right below. However, legend had it that the bronze coffin was as heavy as Mount Tai. Even the 100-change Star Lord was unable to bring it up by himself. The 100-change Star Lord had raised a question. Why couldn't they just go down to the bottom of the canyon and open the bronze coffin? Why did they have to go through so much trouble to get the bronze coffin out? The devil clan was clearly prepared and gave a convincing answer. It turned out that there was a mysterious power in the canyon. This power not only protected the bronze coffin, but also imprisoned it. It was as if this was an arrangement made by someone back then. They wanted the bronze coffin to remain silent at the bottom of the canyon, and no one would care about it. If the bronze coffin was opened in the canyon, it would cause a huge reaction. All the people in the canyon would die, and not a single one would be left alive. Only by taking the bronze coffin out and losing the restriction of that mysterious power would the true secret of the bronze coffin be discovered, and there would not be any negative reactions. Therefore, when the 100-change Star Lord said that he would definitely die after opening the bronze coffin, he was not just trying to scare him. But now that things had come to this, what was done, and there was no turning back. Seeing Tang Jing retreat as if he had seen a ghost, the 100-change Star Lord also wanted to take a look at what was inside. But when he remembered the instructions of the Devil Clan, he hesitated. Those Devil Clan members had already died at the hands of Tian Chanzi, so they would not be able to see this scene, let alone use this opportunity to let the Devil Clan return. The 100-change Star Lord did not care about the demands of the inner demons. Now, he only had eyes for the bronze coffin. How could this be? How could this be? Tang Jing muttered to himself, as if he was possessed. The Empyrean Fairy and Linger stood on either side of him worriedly. They shook his arm and asked, "What did you see?" Tang Jing turned a deaf ear to them and continued to exclaim, "Too inconceivable! Too inconceivable!" The 100-change Star Lord finally could not take it anymore. His heart felt like it was being clawed by a cat. In a flash, he rushed toward the bronze coffin. The Empyrean Fairy also wanted to rush over, but she was half a beat slower. The 100-change Star Lord also stood in the air above the bronze coffin. A pair of big eyes stared at it without blinking. His whole body shook violently, and his face became extremely ugly. He muttered to himself, "How could it be me? How could it be me?" The Empyrean Fairy was confused. Finally, she rushed over and took a closer look. A familiar face came into view. There was a person lying in the bronze coffin. She was very lifelike, and her face was ruddy. The most inconceivable thing was that she was the Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy felt like she was looking into a mirror. Seeing a person who looked exactly like her lying in the bronze coffin, she was afraid that anyone would be stimulated. She was alive and well, so why was she lying in the bronze coffin? Moreover, this bronze coffin had been buried here for many years. If someone had found an identical person and placed her inside, it could not be so coincidental. The Empyrean Fairy shook her head and took a few steps back. She muttered to herself, "Impossible, what is going on?" Tang Jing, the Empyrean Fairy, and the 100-change Star Lord all had the same reaction. Linger also wanted to go over and see what was going on, but Tang Jing stopped her and said, "Don't go!" Linger stared at Tang Jing with her big black eyes and asked, "Master, what is inside that made the three of you have such a big reaction?" Tang Jing swallowed his saliva and hesitated for a long time. Then he said, "There is a person who looks exactly like me inside." Tang Jing suspected that one of them was a celestial who just so happened to look exactly like him. But there was no such coincidence in this world. Linger covered her mouth and cried out in alarm, "Master, you are alive and standing here, how can it be you inside?" Chapter 844. The 9 Heavens Mystical Maiden and the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign both looked as if they had seen a ghost as they stared at Tang Jing without blinking. "You said you were in the bronze coffin?" Tang Jing looked at the two of them blankly and nodded subconsciously. Yes, he saw it clearly. Could it be wrong? The Empyrean fairy had an idea and asked the Hundred Faces Star-Lord. What did you see? Myself. The Hundred Faces Star-Lord hesitated for a moment, and said truthfully. The Empyrean fairy's mouth twitched and muttered. I also saw myself. Immediately, the three of them felt a headache. Why did the three of them see themselves in the bronze coffin? There was clearly only one person lying there, so why were there three faces? It was not only the face, but every part of the body was exactly the same as them. How could they be wrong? The three of them were deep in thought, but they could not figure it out. Tian Chanzi's body was steaming with black gas, making him look extremely sinister. He laughed strangely and said, I told you not to open the bronze coffin. You are courting death, so you can't blame others. Tang Jing stared at Tian Chanzi and said, Hundred Faces Star-Lord, didn't you say that Tian Chanzi would recover if we opened the bronze coffin? Why is he still like this? The Hundred Faces Star-Lord was at a loss and said, How would I know? That jade-like naughty face, coupled with that aggrieved expression, was especially confusing. If it was anyone else, they would definitely treat him as a harmless child. Tang Jing, however, would not be blinded by this, and said, No matter what is inside, in short, there is a problem. Tian Chanzi said with certainty that they were dead, so how could they just sit there and wait for death? The Hundred Faces Star-Lord heard this, and his face suddenly sank. He waved his small hand and a bloody light rushed towards the bronze coffin. No matter who was inside, he had to make the first move and kill them. Tian Chanzi did not stop him, but looked at them with a cold smile. The bloody light rushed into the bronze coffin, but nothing happened. The wind was calm and the waves were calm. The silence was a bit excessive. The Hundred Faces Star-Lord's face changed slightly. He was very clear about the power of his attack, but it was like throwing a stone into the sea. There was no reaction at all, not even a ripple. He did not give up and wanted to attack again, but there was a sound from the bronze coffin. Immediately, everyone was shocked. Could it be that there was a living thing inside? Tian Chanzi said with a sinister smile. You are all dead! Their faces were filled with indignation. Were they doomed? It was too early to make a conclusion. Someone in the bronze coffin stood up. There were three people. Tang Jing, the Empyrean fairy, and the Hundred Faces Star-Lord. The three of them looked exactly the same as them. Even the Hundred Faces Star Sovereign, who was good at transformation, could not help but feel his eyelids twitch. Just a mere illusion, illusion, illusion. Illusion, 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 illusion. See how? See. He roared loudly and madly attacked the person who looked exactly like him. Bang! He directly attacked his opponent's body, but his opponent didn't move at all. Instead, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he looked at him with an evil aura. Even though the Hundred Faces Star-Lord was experienced and had a strong mind, he could not help but tremble when he saw this. What are you? The Hundred Faces Star-Lord looked at him and smiled. He did not say a word and continued to walk toward him. Faced with this strange situation, the Hundred Faces Star-Lord was furious. He roared, I don't believe I can't deal with you. In an instant, he unleashed all of his skills, and all of his powerful moves were thrown at his opponent. But everything was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no reaction at all. The other two people also walked toward their opponents. The Empyrean fairy saw herself walking over and subconsciously took a few steps back. She did not attack rashly. Instead, she observed her opponent's actions, hoping to figure out what was going on and find a flaw. But she found that it was almost wishful thinking. She did not find any flaw. On the other hand, although Tang Jing was panicking, when he saw himself getting closer and closer, that trace of panic was unknowingly suppressed. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the other party. He found that the closer the other party got, the blurrier it became. When he was only a meter away from Tang Jing, he could not see his appearance clearly. He could not tell that it was himself. What's going on? Tang Jing subconsciously turned his head to look at the other two. Their reactions were completely different from his. The Hundred Faces Star-Lord was attacking relentlessly, while the Empyrean Fairy was dodging. She did not want to come into direct contact with herself. Only he was the quietest, especially when he saw the blurry image. He was sure that although he did not know what was going on, his situation was completely different from the other two. Something must have gone wrong. The blurry shadow continued to walk toward him. Tang Jing could no longer sit still and watch. The war soul in his hand blazed. Whiz! He slashed at the opponent. Aoo! A sharp roar rang out, and the shadow began to transform rapidly. Why aren't you affected? Tang Jing's heart moved. Could it be that this was the voice of that terrifying thing? It did sound strange, but when he looked at the others, they did not have the slightest reaction. It was as if they did not hear this voice at all. Strange. Tang Jing did not know why he was not affected. Instead, he said with a firm expression, "What exactly are you? How can you bewitch people?" Tang Jing could already confirm that the three of them saw him in the bronze ball was an illusion. It was just that the illusion was too realistic. Even the Hundred Faces Star-Lord could not distinguish it. But why was it that when the other party walked out of the bronze coffin, especially when they were closer to him, the illusion did not work? Tang Jing was puzzled, but without a doubt, this was a good sign. Without the influence of the illusion, he could wholeheartedly deal with the other party. He could still see the predicament of the Hundred Faces Star-Lord and the Empyrean Fairy, so he loudly reminded them not to panic. However, he found that no one could hear him. It was as if he was isolated from the world. Although he could clearly see everything around him, it was as if he was not a person of this world. It was close at hand, but far away at the end of the world. What kind of magic did you use? Tang Jing angrily asked. The shadow circled around Tang Jing. Tang Jing sternly waited, not daring to slack off. He tightly gripped the war soul in his hand, his palms slowly dripping with cold sweat. Finally, the shadow opened its mouth and said in realization, "I finally understand. You do not have inner demons, so you are not affected." Inner demons! Tang Jing's head moved. He remembered the mirror he saw on the 4th floor of the Langya Pavilion. Wasn't the exorcist's mirror an item to expel the inner demons? In the Langya Pavilion, his inner demons had been dispelled, so his cultivation speed was faster and he could focus more. However, he did not expect that there would be a pleasant surprise. Even the Hundred Faces Star-Lord and the Empyrean Fairy were affected. He was the only one who was slightly affected at first, but in the end, he was completely fine. In this point, he surpassed the two experts. Who exactly are you? Why don't you have inner demons? The shadow asked incredulously. Tang Jing sneered. And who are you? You can actually control people's inner demons? Ha! A series of strange laughter sounded. Who am I? Humph, I am the person everyone is afraid of. That's why they imprisoned me here. What a bunch of cowards. Who imprisoned you? You wouldn't know even if I told you. If I see them again, I will definitely tear them into pieces. No, I will let them kill each other. Ha ha, I will watch the show from the side. The shadow laughed wildly. Tang Jing's heart jumped. This shadow spoke mysteriously, but it didn't seem to be deliberately mystifying, which meant that he was definitely not an ordinary ruthless character. Moreover, this prehistoric heavenly tomb had existed since ancient times, and had already existed for tens of thousands of years. Then, this shadow must have been imprisoned here even earlier. There were many experts in that era, so he couldn't guess who had imprisoned him. You keep saying that others are cowards, but until now, you still haven't revealed your true face. You only know how to brag. Do you dare to say your name? Tang Jing provoked. Who am I? Of course I won't forget, and there's no need to be mysterious. As long as they hear my name, everyone will be scared silent, or even scared out of their wits. The shadow said confidently. Then tell me. Listen up, I am the most powerful person in the world, inner demons. The shadow said firmly. Inner demons? Tang Jing was startled. Haha, are you scared? The inner demons were proud of themselves. Tang Jing wasn't scared at all, he was confused. He reacted as if he had just woken up from a dream and said, "Tisk, you're scared. You think too highly of yourself." "What? You're not scared? Have you never heard of my illustrious name?" The inner demons was very surprised and shouted, "Forgive me for my shallow knowledge, but I have never heard of your name." Tang Jing used the exorcist's mirror to expel his own inner demons, but he had never heard of any expert in this world called inner demons. "Impossible, my inner demons is very famous. Everyone in the world knows about it, how could you not have heard of it?" The inner demons were unconvinced and said angrily. Tang Jing snorted disdainfully, "You're just bragging about yourself." "Nonsense, my inner demons don't need to brag about themselves. If I wasn't so powerful, how could I be imprisoned here?" "Humph, everyone has their inner demons, and I can control their inner demons and thus control everyone. Do you think they won't be afraid of me?" Tang Jing's head dropped. This person's words were so convincing that it didn't seem like he was lying. It was true that everyone had their inner demons, but to control someone's inner demons was a bit of a fantasy. But there was nothing absolute in this world, and everything was possible. If this person could really control the inner demons, then he could indirectly control everyone. This was indeed a heaven-defying ability, and this person was a heaven-defying existence. He wasn't like other experts. Other experts could destroy others, but they couldn't completely control others. This person could control others and use them for himself. Chapter 845. You're the weirdest. You don't have inner demons and aren't affected by me. I shouldn't let a person like you live in this world. The inner demons said fiercely. I don't have inner demons in my body. You can't control me, so how are you going to kill me? Haha, there's no need for me to do it myself. If someone does it, as long as I control the two of them, do you think you can still survive with your cultivation? The inner demons said proudly. Tang Jing's head trembled. It was indeed so. As long as either the Empyrean Fairy or the 100 Faces Star-Lord fell into the control of the inner demons, then Tang Jing would definitely not be able to get anything out of it. Seeing that the two of them were not in a good situation, Tang Jing knew that he could no longer stand by and watch. The first thing he had to do was to break through this strange illusion. Break for me! Tang Jing bellowed, holding on to the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow in his hands. The bowstring trembled, and the shooting sun arrow shot out into the sky. Heaven-shocking bow, shooting sun arrow! The inner demons actually recognized the two divine weapons at a glance and exclaimed. Tang Jing laughed coldly, only to hear a shattering sound. The scene in front of his eyes changed, creating circles of ripples. The shooting sun arrow unimpeded struck the rock wall, causing rocks to fly everywhere. The scene in front of him changed, and Tang Jing actually realized that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was already on the verge of death, and was actually attacking the air non-stop. And the Empyrean Fairy was also continuously dodging. There was no one in front of him. There was no second 100 Faces Star-Lord or Empyrean Fairy in this canyon, and even the shadow in front of Tang Jing had disappeared without a trace. Tang Jing was flabbergasted, so everything from before was an illusion, created by the inner demons controlling people's hearts, so no matter how the 100 Faces Star-Lord attacked, it would not have any effect. This was because he was attacking the air. As for the Empyrean Fairy, no matter how she dodged, that imaginary self would always follow her like a shadow, because it was an illusion constructed by her heart. Tang Jing's head trembled. Looking at this scene, he was deeply shocked. No wonder the inner demons were so confident. He really did have the strength. Even experts like the 100 Faces Star-Lord and the Empyrean Fairy had only taken a glance inside the bronze coffin, and they had been tricked by him. As for Linger and Little White, they looked at this scene with curiosity. They didn't look into the bronze coffin, so they weren't affected. You people. Inner demons. You people, the inner demons. You will suffer the consequences of your own actions. Everything was happening right under his nose. He was powerless. From the moment the bronze coffin was opened, he could do nothing. His power was quickly draining away. Suddenly, he looked at the culprit of all this, Tang Jing. If he had not opened the coffin without permission, then none of this would have happened. But when he looked at Tang Jing, he was shocked and shouted, "You! Why are you not affected?" Tang Jing looked at Tian Chanzi with a complicated expression and said, "Tian Chanzi, get better quickly. I am Tang Jing." Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Jing coldly and said, "Tang Jing, why are you not affected by the inner demons?" "My inner demons have been eliminated. They can't affect me." Tian Chanzi stared at Tang Jing in disbelief and exclaimed, "The inner demons have been eliminated? How did you do it?" Tang Jing did not answer and said, "You are not Tian Chanzi. Why did you take over his body? Leave him quickly. You still have the time to care about him. Your top priority is to deal with the inner demons. If the inner demons appear, not only will you die, but the world will also be in chaos." Tian Chanzi said solemnly. Tang Jing said that Tian Chanzi's words were reasonable. They had to deal with the inner demons first. Otherwise, if they let him control anyone and escape, then it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It was almost impossible to find him. However, whether it was the 100 Faces Star Lord or the Empyrean Fairy, he was no match for them. So, he turned his eyes and stared at the bronze coffin. He rushed toward the bronze coffin with big strides. Tian Chanzi looked at his actions and did not stop him. He sighed in his heart. Success or failure depended on this one move. If there was no Tang Jing, an anomaly without the inner demons, this would be a dead end. No one would be able to escape. With such an anomaly, there might be a ray of hope. "Master, be careful." Linger was scared stiff. The changes in the scene were beyond her imagination. Tang Jing nodded slightly. Just as he was about to rush to the bronze coffin, a huge body blocked his way. A giant! He actually came to block Tang Jing and howled. He was not affected, so he was still anxious to carry out the 100 Faces Star Lord's order to not let Tang Jing get close to the bronze coffin. "Get out of my way!" Tang Jing hysterically roared. Time was of the essence and could not be delayed, but this big guy still blocked his way without hesitation. He was really unlucky. The giant was indifferent. Instead, he kicked at him. The wind was biting cold, and a huge pressure fell from the sky. Tang Jing was angry and anxious. He drew his bow and shot the shooting sun arrow directly at the giant's foot. Pfft! Blood splattered. The shooting sun arrow directly penetrated the giant's foot. The giant was in pain. He howled and staggered back. Tang Jing took advantage of this good opportunity. His body flashed, and he went around the giant, arriving in front of the bronze coffin. Indeed, there was a person lying in the bronze coffin. This person's face was ruddy and handsome. He was a middle-aged uncle whose appearance was not inferior to the 100 Faces Star Lord. His originally tightly shut eyes suddenly opened, and his pair of eyes seemed to have a soul-sucking demonic power as he stared straight at Tang Jing. Tang Jing felt as if his soul was about to leave his body. He hurriedly channeled his energy and guarded his mind. Although he did not have the inner demons, his heart was still stirred by the other's eyes. It was enough to show the other strength. "You want to kill me?" The inner demon stood up. He was dressed in ancient clothing. His black hair fluttered in the wind. The corner of his mouth hung an incomparably mysterious smile. "So this is the true face of the inner demons," Tang Jing said fiercely. "I do want to kill you. You intimidate people's souls. You must die." The inner demons laughed disapprovingly. "If I was so easy to kill, then they could have just killed me back then. Why would they go through so much trouble to imprison me here?" Tang Jing's head thumped. The inner demons' words were reasonable. The ancient people were so powerful that they could only imprison each other. This meant that the inner demons could not be casually killed. But seeing the inner demons in front of him, and the War Soul Sword could pierce his chest at any time, Tang Jing felt that he could not let go of this great opportunity. The Empyrean Fairy was hanging by a thread. If he did not make a move, then the inner demons would control her. No matter what, This was a result that Tang Jing could not accept. What are you waiting for? Kill him with one strike, Tian Chanzi urged. The inner demons looked at Tian Chanzi with a smile and said, You are a remnant soul left behind by that person. Now you are attached to this person's body in an attempt to stop them from opening the bronze coffin. Unfortunately, you still failed. Tian Chanzi's expression kept changing. He did not say a word. The inner demon looked around and stared at the deep and terrifying cliff, saying, You used the place with the densest evil chi to imprison me. It's a pity that the evil chi has consumed a lot of my power over the years. But as long as I come out, this world will still be mine. Tang Jing muttered in his heart. Previously, the Hundred Faces Star-Lord said that he had to pull the bronze coffin up to open it. Now it seemed that pulling it up was more serious than opening the coffin at the bottom of the canyon. Could it be that the Hundred Faces Star-Lord was deceived by the Demon Clan? The Demon Clan did not tell them the truth. Once the bronze coffin was pulled up, without the suppression of the baleful Yin Qi, the inner demons would become stronger. This was equivalent to helping the inner demons. The Hundred Faces Star-Lord was indeed deceived by the Demon Clan. The Demon Clan was incomparably cunning. Although the Hundred Faces Star-Lord helped them return, how could they easily believe him? Therefore, they used a fact and not a lie to deceive him. It was a pity that the Demon Clan's luck was not good. Before they could open the coffin, they were all killed by Tian Chanzi. Of course, the Demon Clan knew the power of the inner demons. This was a very risky operation, but the Demon Clan had another plan. The Demon Clan planned to all submit to the inner demons and follow this powerful new master to expand their territory. It would not take long for the entire world to belong to the Demon Clan. This was a huge sacrifice. However, the Demon Clan in the sky beyond sky was not as strong as before. They had no choice but to make this plan. However, as long as the Demon Clan's power and glory could be guaranteed, they were willing to worship the inner demons as their masters. It had to be said that the Demon Clan did not play by the rules. They were willing to make such a huge sacrifice. Of course, once they succeeded, the rewards would be huge. Unifying the world was a magnificent feat that countless generations of the Demon Clan had not been able to achieve. If Tang Jing knew the whole story, he would probably be amazed by the boldness and strangeness of the current master of the Demon Clan. Of course, the Demon Clan was dead, and no one knew about this. Looking at the complacent inner demons, Tang Jing gnashed his teeth and said, Why are you talking so much nonsense? You think I don't dare to kill you, right? Then you are completely wrong. Go to hell! Tang Jing stabbed out with his sword. No! A cry of alarm came from Tian Chanzi's mouth. This was Tian Chanzi's original voice. Tang Jing was startled, but it was too late. The War Soul sword pierced the inner demon's chest. Fresh blood gushed out and dyed the War Soul sword red. The inner demons did not resist or even dodge. Tang Jing found it inconceivable. The inner demons were so strong, they should at least have some dodging movements. Like a puppet, they allowed the War Soul sword to pierce their chest. This was too strange. Tang Jing had a bad premonition. Why didn't you dodge? The inner demon said indifferently. My combat ability is not strong. I am inferior to you. How can I dodge? I might as well take your sword. Tang Jing scratched his head, but he could not guess the inner demon's plan. If you don't fight back, won't you die? Chapter 846. The inner demons did not close his eyes, and his smile made Tang Jing very uneasy. Just as he was about to pull out Battle Soul, he found that the inner demon's hands were firmly holding onto the sword, and blood flowed down his palm. Tang Jing, you fell into his trap, quickly let go. Tian Chanzi's voice sounded again. This time it was still Tian Chanzi himself. Obviously, the remnant soul attached to his body was weakening, and he was worried about Tang Jing's safety, so he temporarily seized control of his body. Tang Jing glanced at Tian Chanzi from the corner of his eyes, and found that his face was full of regret. Suddenly, Tian Chanzi's face changed, and he became incomparably cold. He had lost control of his body again, and he said resolutely, Tangjing, you don't have the inner demons, so you have a chance to live. Remember, guard your mind, and don't let him control you. Haha, do you think it's that easy? The inner demons laughed disapprovingly, and his hands let go of Battle Soul and fell straight down. His eyes were wide open, and there was no sign of life. Tangjing did not understand what was going on, but his mind suddenly trembled, and he felt that his soul was out of his body, as if this body was no longer his, and his original soul was about to be squeezed out. He quickly remembered Tian Chanzi's warning, and quickly circulated his energy, guarding his mind. Haha, do you think this is enough to shut me out? A voice sounded in Tangjing's mind, making him quiver, and he almost shouted in fear. Fortunately, Tian Chanzi had been in his mind for a long time, and he had experience, so he was not scared to the point of being at a loss. It turned out that the inner demons did not die, but ran into his body. No matter what method he used, in short, Tangjing was in big trouble. Now you should know why no one dares to kill me, right? The inner demons said proudly. Tangjing suddenly realized that it was no wonder that he was only imprisoned here and not killed. It turned out that killing him had to pay such a big price. It was easy to destroy his body, but his soul would attach to the body of the person who killed him, thus taking control of the person's body. This was not killing the inner demons, but sacrificing oneself, so no one was willing to take this risk. Looks like you're a smart person. You've already guessed it. It's very easy to kill me, and there are many ways. But no matter what method you use, it doesn't matter whether it's long range or short range. As long as you kill me, my soul will possess his body and take over his body. Tell me, is there anyone in this world who would sacrifice themselves to do such a stupid thing? Moreover, this can't really kill me, just let me change my body. The inner demon's voice was full of pride, mockery, and ridicule, which made Tangjing shudder. It turned out that the inner demons were so powerful, no wonder Tian Chanzi said that it would be a huge catastrophe if he released him. He was an immortal monster, and even if his body died, his soul could be passed on indefinitely. How did such a heaven-defying existence come into being? Tangjing was really curious, and had an impulse to find the source, but now he could not even protect himself. Your body is not bad, I am very satisfied. In the future, I will let your body witness my glory, you should feel honored. It's an honor, you big-headed ghost. Tangjing could not help but scold. You want to take over my body and control it? No way, my inner demons have been eliminated, let's see what you can do. The inner demons have been eliminated. If it was like what they did, I really could not do anything to you, but you are courting death by killing me, so let me take over your body. Without the inner demons, I can still control you. Tangjing felt a chill in his heart. Even a wise man would make a mistake. He only wanted to save people, but he did not expect that he would lose his advantage, and the inner demons would take advantage of him. He subconsciously looked at Tian Chanzi. Perhaps he was also aware of this, but he still urged him to kill the inner demons. This was to let him take a risk, because if he could not defeat the inner demons, then the inner demons could get away with it. If he was lucky enough to suppress the inner demons, then he would have a chance to live. Tangjing did not know whether to laugh or cry, but now there was no way to escape, so he could only fight with all his might to see if he could fight for that glimmer of hope. I advise you not to waste your efforts, otherwise, it is not a wise decision to try endless torture in the last moments of your life. The inner demons advised. Tangjing coldly snorted. How can I be scared by your few words? Until the last moment, I will not give up so easily. It is still not clear who will win. The ignorant are not afraid. Then I will show you my power, and let you have a taste of what it feels like to live a life worse than death. After the inner demons finished speaking, Tangjing felt a pain that he had never experienced before in his mind, and then it spread to his limbs, bones, and 8 extraordinary meridians. It was as if his soul was being pulled out of his body. This kind of pain was not only deep in his bones, but also deep in his soul. The pain from his soul made his whole body tremble, and with a plop, he fell to the ground, twitching nonstop. Linger saw this scene and turned pale with fright. She quickly guarded him and asked anxiously, "Master, how are you, master?" Heaven Monk had mixed feelings as he advised. "Miss, you don't have to be anxious, everything has its own destiny. If he really obtained that glimmer of hope, then he would have saved this world. Otherwise, all of you will be destroyed together with him, it's just a matter of time." Linger suddenly raised her head and stared at Tian Chanzi. "I am willing to die for master." "Haha, your courage is commendable, but this is not a problem that can be solved by dying in his place. Don't worry, if he fails, you will soon die, and you will be reunited." Tian Chanzi laughed strangely. "Get out of my body!" Another voice burst out from Tian Chanzi's throat. "You finally can't wait anymore? Don't worry, I am just borrowing your body. I will not hurt you. The inner demons are the most important. I will not give up until I see the final result. I have guarded the bronze coffin for so many years, and I thought that everything would be peaceful, that the inner demons and I would disappear in the vast river of history. I did not expect that the situation would be disturbed by you people, so if there are any serious consequences, it will be your own fault. But you should not harm Tang Jing, he is innocent. Since he does not have inner demons, if he did not kill the inner demons, then he would not be in danger." The real Tian Chanzi retorted. "Haha, maybe this is the will of the heavens to let him, a person without inner demons, appear here. This is his destiny, he cannot escape, I am just following orders." What a glib tongue, nonsense! Linga looked at Tian Chanzi talking to himself and almost broke down. Tears flowed out of her eyes, and she looked at her master who was lying on the ground in pain and started crying. Squeak, squeak! Xiao Bai also circled around Tang Jing, trying to think of a solution, but there was nothing he could do. His eyes were full of worry. As for the Empyrean Fairy and the Hundred Faces Star-Lord, they were almost exhausted. They were still trapped in the illusion, fighting or hiding from themselves. The giant's tall body was just a decoration. He was at a loss, looking at everything in a daze. Although he was big, his brain was not very good. The cold wind blew, and the bottom of the canyon was very strange. If an ordinary person saw this scene, they would be scared silly. Tang Jing was still twitching and struggling. The muscles on his face were almost twisted together, and he even looked a little ferocious. Inside his body, a battle that could not be seen was silently going on. Back and forth, it was a battle of slaughter, and the battlefield itself was suffering from all kinds of torment. But Tang Jing was still firmly holding on to his last trace of consciousness. Although he was forced back step by step, he still did not give up. "Don't struggle in vain. You are not my match. Let go, and willingly accept all of this." The inner demon's voice seemed to have a magical power, guiding Tang Jing patiently. Tang Jing clenched his teeth, refusing to compromise. He constantly circulated his energy, and true qi flowed through his body. Only then was he able to maintain his body's vitality and prevent himself from completely collapsing. "If I didn't want to take over your body, perhaps I could have kept you as my servant. That's because you really do have character. It's no wonder you have such a cultivation base at such a young age. Even in the entire world, your talent is one of the best." "Oh, that's not right. You're actually a celestial. The 9-yang saint body. Haha, I've really picked up a treasure. This talent is 1 in 1,000, 1 in 1,000 years. I've heard there are also many mysterious profundities. Once I take over your body, I'll slowly discover them." The inner demons acted as if they had discovered a new continent, and became excited. "With this body of yours, my shortcomings will be made up for. My physical body's strength will greatly increase. In the future, no one will be able to kill me. That way, I'll be even safer. After all, every time I take over someone's body, it's not a simple matter." The inner demon's endless chatter caused Tang Jing's heart to sink to the bottom. He was the one directly involved, so he had the deepest feeling. He had no choice but to multitask. On one hand, he had to resist the torturous pain of his body. On the other, he had to resist the inner demon's attack on his soul. Tang Jing had already been forced back step by step. The inner demons had already reached his heart. That beating heart and rapidly flowing blood was Tang Dang's final fortress. If he allowed the inner demons to invade his heart, then he would truly be defeated. There would be no turning back. His soul would disappear and his life would truly come to an end. I can already see the heart. This heart is truly powerful. I can feel its surging life force. This is the heart I want. The heart of my inner demons should be this powerful, ha ha. Don't be delusional. This is mine. Don't even think about taking it away. Tang Jing retorted. Ha ha, let's see how you'll protect it. As soon as the inner demons finished speaking, a mysterious energy rushed toward the heart. It attempted to wrap around the heart and attack it. Tang Jing resisted with all his might, but he was forced back step by step. In the end, a strand of the inner demon's soul broke through Tang Jing's defenses and rushed into the heart with unstoppable momentum. In an instant, all of Tang Dang's defenses collapsed. His heart was firmly occupied by the inner demons. Chapter 847. Losing control of his heart, Tang Jing screamed in pain. He felt his soul leaving his body. The inner demon's arrogant laughter was extremely ear-piercing. Huh! Why can't I completely occupy this heart? Suddenly, the inner demon's voice sounded again. It was bewildered. What's wrong with your heart? The inner demon's voice suddenly rose and screamed. Although Tang Jing felt very uncomfortable, he was not scared out of his wits. That trace of sobriety made him realize that the situation had taken a turn for the better. Heart? Could it be that Chiyu's heart was working? For a long time, Chiyu's heart did not respond. Tang Jing almost forgot that his heart was Chiyu's heart. Chiyu's heart was extremely mysterious. It had helped him to escape danger many times. Chiyu's heart, if you can really fight against the inner demons, then quickly show yourself. Otherwise, I'm going to die. As if it had heard his thoughts, Chiyu's heart began to beat rapidly. A mysterious force surged out of the heart. What's wrong with this heart? The mental devil shrieked at the top of its lungs. Are you trying to swallow me? Dream on. The inner demons had never encountered such a situation. In the past, he had taken over other people's bodies to extend his life. But everything happened naturally without any obstacles. This time, because Tang Jing did not have the inner demons, there were many obstacles in the beginning. Now, they had broken through his defenses and entered his heart. He originally thought that he had succeeded, but now he realized that it was too early to be happy. There was still a mysterious force that firmly locked him in place. This force was somewhat familiar to him, but also somewhat fearful. I must have seen this force somewhere before. It's been too long. I can't remember it at the moment. Let me think, I must remember. The inner demons talked to himself. I remember now. Chiyu, this power is very similar to Chiyu's power. The inner demons suddenly realized. I was wondering how this person with such a weak cultivation could resist me. It turns out that he has the heart of Chiyu. Back then, Chiyu was also a celestial. That's why only this Tang Jing is able to control Chiyu's heart. Inner demons, you actually want to compete with me? A dignified voice suddenly sounded. Tang Jing shivered. This was the first time he had heard this voice. Just by listening to it, he felt an indescribable pressure. If it was an ordinary person, they would have knelt on the ground with a thud. Tang Jing gritted his teeth as he listened to the two voices in his body. He felt that it was a bit absurd, and he was also a bit scared. It turned out that Chiyu's heart was not an inanimate object. It actually had a consciousness. This was a hidden force that he had not sensed. Now that he thought about it, at the critical moment, Chiyu's heart had controlled his body. This was actually an extremely dangerous matter. Since Chiyu's heart could control him for a moment, then perhaps it could control him for a lifetime. Wasn't he being possessed? What was the difference between this and being possessed by the inner demons? It turned out that there was a ticking time bomb hidden in his body, but he was muddle-headed and did not know about it. His heart was ice cold as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. This Chiyu's heart had always been hidden. Just why? His mind was a mess. For a moment, he could not figure out the reason. He could only quietly listen to the conversation between the two voices, hoping to gain something. Chiyu, I have yet to seek revenge for the past. I never thought that I would meet you again today. Humph, I thought that I would never have the chance to seek revenge in this lifetime. Now that I have the chance, I will devour you. Haha, the famous Chiyu will also die in my hands. This is a great honor. The inner demons laughed wildly. Back then, when I joined forces with the Yellow Emperor, I did not kill you. Instead, I imprisoned you. What a huge mistake, I actually let you live to the end. The Chiyu's heart said. He kill me? Do you dare? You joined forces with the Yellow Emperor, but you could not do anything to me. All you could do was imprison me. Does this show how afraid you are of death? The inner demons snorted. Tang Zheng was shocked. It turned out that the people who imprisoned the inner demons were Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor. In other words, before the Battle of Zhuolu, Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor were not sworn enemies. They even joined forces to fight against the inner demons. Perhaps something happened later that led to the war between the two great masters and the two tribes. Even if I am afraid of death, I will not be afraid of you. Inner demons, I could not deal with you back then, but things are different now. Do you think that I can't deal with you? The inner demons sneered. How can you deal with me? Back then, we all had inner demons. Even if we used all kinds of methods to expel the inner demons and suppress the inner demons, in the end, the inner demons were not completely expelled. Therefore, we would be at a great disadvantage against you. But now, the owner of this body does not have a trace of the inner demons. With this condition, do you still think that you are my match? The inner demons fell silent. The atmosphere became a little heavy. Suddenly, the inner demons said, I admit that what you said is reasonable, but you are only a remnant soul of the Chiyu from back then. You are no longer as powerful as before. Otherwise, why would you hide in this young man's body instead of directly occupying it? Therefore, don't boast too early. The outcome of the battle is not yet known. Tangjing fell to the bottom of the valley. It seemed that the Chiyu's heart really wanted to possess him, but now it was not strong enough. He thought that obtaining the heart of the Chiyu was a great opportunity, but now it seemed that it was not an opportunity, but a bomb that could explode at any time. No, I can't just sit and wait for death. If the inner demons win, then I will have no chance to live. If the inner demons lose, I must guard against the heart of the Chiyu and think of ways to deal with it or destroy it. Tang Jing made up his mind and began to think about how to deal with the heart of the Chiyu. There was no doubt that as long as he destroyed the remnant soul of the Chiyu, he would be safe. As for the heart of the Chiyu, he could not kill it as well. If he did, then he would not be able to live. Since you don't want to give up, then I will let you know how powerful I am. After the heart of the Chiyu finished speaking, an invisible force immediately wrapped around the inner demons. Tang Jing only felt that the scene in front of him changed. The valley disappeared, and so did everyone else. He had actually magically arrived at a battlefield. On the battlefield, banners were fluttering, and dark clouds were pressing down. The two sides of the battle had already set up their chariots and horses. Under the command of two generals riding mighty strange beasts, both sides charged at each other. This is definitely not a normal battle in ancient times, and it is not a scene from a movie. It is too realistic, too shocking, and no special effects can compare to it. The two sides of the battle were not only humans, but also demonic beasts. Moreover, the mounts of the humans were very strange and extraordinary. They were all demonic beasts. Most demonic beasts were violent by nature. These people could actually tame demonic beasts, which showed how powerful they were. In addition, there were also giants. The giants were hundreds of meters tall, but they were not invincible on the battlefield. Some of them were even directly killed by some normal humans. Of course, there were two people who attracted the most attention on the battlefield. These two people were at the very front, and they were the generals of both sides. They were both extraordinarily powerful individuals, and with just a glance, people would feel reverence in their hearts. Some even prostrated themselves on the ground. The battle between these two people could be said to be earth-shattering. The earth cracked under their attacks, turning into valleys, mountains into plains, and plains into bottomless pits. This was simply the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. Tang Jiang's breathing couldn't help but quicken. Compared to these people, his own ability was simply not enough. He was afraid that in a few rounds he would die on the battlefield. The cycle of the sun and the moon, day and night alternated, but the battle still did not stop. In the end, after an unknown amount of time, one side was finally defeated and gradually retreated. In order to buy time for his clansmen to retreat, the general of that side resolutely resisted the enemy's overwhelming attacks by himself. In the end, a portion of his clansmen finally escaped, and he died of exhaustion. His heart was dug out, and although it left his body, it was still beating non-stop. Tang Jing felt a pain in his heart, and the illusion in front of him disappeared. He suddenly realized that this battle might have really happened in history. It was the famous Battle of Zhuelu. The two generals who had the power to destroy the world were Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor. The person who was defeated and had his heart dug out was Qi Yu, and that heart was Qi Yu's heart. However, why was he seeing a battle from tens of thousands of years ago for no reason? He was like a bystander, clearly watching the earth-shattering battle. His heart stirred. All of this was probably related to Qi Yu's heart and the inner demons. What happened to these two guys? Tang Jing suddenly remembered that he did not hear their voices. Everything was eerily silent. However, the pain in his body seemed to have disappeared. Could it be that the inner demons had been eliminated? Before he could rejoice, the inner demon's voice sounded. It was hysterical and abnormally angry. Qi Yu, you damn bastard! You didn't kill me back then, and now you actually used this youth's body to defeat me. I can't accept this. Inner demons, you're really lucky that I didn't completely kill you. Qi Yu's remnant soul was also unwilling. Haha, you want to completely kill me? Do you have the ability? Back then, you and the Yellow Emperor couldn't completely kill me even when you joined forces, much less now. If it wasn't for this youth, you would have been devoured by me. How would you have the right to speak? Tang Jing listened to the two's argument, but his body did not feel anything strange. He could not help but be curious and asked, "What's going on? Why did I see the scene of the Battle of Zhuelu just now?" The inner demons laughed. Just now, Qi Yu lost his mind and naturally produced the scene of the Battle of Zhuelu. I finally understand why he lost to the Yellow Emperor. It's retribution. When he joined forces with the Yellow Emperor to deal with me, he never thought that he would be defeated by the Yellow Emperor one day. Ha! Shut up! Qi Yu shouted angrily. Chapter 848. Tang Jing was confused. I defeated the inner demons? What do you mean? The inner demons seemed to have seen through Tang Jing's thoughts and said, You don't believe it, do you? Then I'll tell you the truth. Qi Yu has the inner demons, so not only you, but he also fell into the illusion. Moreover, his murderous intent and resentment were very strong. If you didn't have the inner demons, you wouldn't have been confused by the illusion and controlled by it. You wouldn't have been angry and fell into the illusion and naturally withdrew. Once you withdrew from the illusion, you also withdrew with Qi Yu, so you saved him and defeated me. Tang Jing didn't quite understand, but one thing was certain, and that was that he didn't have the inner demons, and it did play a huge role. Of course, Qi Yu also played a role, because Qi Yu's heart resisted the inner demons. In fact, the hearts of Tang Jing and Qi Yu were like two locks. Both locks had to be opened at the same time for the inner demons to occupy Tang Jing's body. Otherwise, no matter which lock he opened, he wouldn't be able to occupy Tang Jing's body, which doomed him to failure. However, even if Qi Yu wanted to completely kill the inner demons, he couldn't do it. After the two of them fought and tested each other's strength, they simply stopped attacking. The inner demons were very patient and carefully explained to Tang Jing. He finally understood the whole story. He couldn't help but be secretly amazed. But he was also very distressed, because since the inner demons and Shiyu couldn't do anything to each other, didn't that mean that there would be two more souls in his body? He had already experienced the feeling of Tian Chanzi living in his body, and now he had so many secrets, he really didn't want the inner demons and Shiyu to know. "Why are you living in my body? Why are you leaving my body?" Tang Jing said indignantly. "Haha, I can't bear to leave your body. Who knows when I'll be able to take over your body? Celestial, 9-yang saint body, that's a 1 in 10,000 physiques. How could I give it up?" laughed the inner demons. Chiyu said, "My heart and Chiyu's heart are one. If you want me to leave, then take out Chiyu's heart." Tang Jing rolled his eyes speechlessly. His own heart had long been swallowed by Chiyu's heart and fused into one. If his heart was dug out, how could he live? Therefore, these two would never leave his body no matter what. Tang Jing scratched his head in distress. "Why am I so miserable?" he cried. "Humph, young man, I, the famous inner demons, am living in your body because I think highly of you. You don't know what's good for you," said the inner demons in a bad mood. "Shut up!" Tang Jing didn't have a good temper. No matter how great the other side's background was, he wasn't afraid. As soon as he said, "Shut up," the inner demons really didn't say anything. Tang Jing clicked his tongue in wonder. "Heh, how obedient! Now I'll have much more peace." "Tang Jing, you?" Chiyu also seemed to have something to say. Tang Jing felt a lingering fear. Chiyu's remnant soul was like a ticking time bomb. Hearing his voice, he couldn't help but shiver. "You shut up too!" As expected, Chiyu's voice also disappeared. Without these two voices buzzing in his ears, Tang Jing felt much more relaxed. "Hey, why are they so obedient? I said shut up and they didn't even say half a word." Suddenly, he realized something strange and asked, "Hey, why aren't you two talking? Are you mute?" There was still no reply. This made him feel incredulous. Could it be that something had happened just now? So they couldn't talk? These were two souls. Tang Jing couldn't observe what had happened to them. He couldn't help but recall the previous scene. He suddenly slapped his forehead and his eyes lit up. Could it be that I said shut up, so they can't talk? Although this idea was ridiculous, it was the only explanation. Hey! If that was the case, then he had the initiative and wouldn't be controlled by these two powerful souls. He could even control them to a certain extent. "Open your mouth!" He had a flash of inspiration and said, "Phew, I'm suffocating." "Young man, what did you do to stop me from talking?" the inner demons asked angrily. Chiyu was also shocked and asked, "Tang Jing, how did you do it?" Tang Jing's heart was in turmoil. He never thought that a blind cat would meet a dead mouse. He was actually right. He could really control these two souls. The inner demons were still angrily questioning. "How dare you tell me to shut up? I'm a dignified inner demon. No one has ever dared to speak to me with such an attitude and tone. You're the first. I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life." "Inner demons, shut your stinky mouth!" Tang Jing scolded impatiently. There was dead silence. The inner demon's voice disappeared. Tang Jing couldn't help but feel that it was very interesting. However, in Chiyu's heart, this was a very serious matter. Tang Deng's performance was far beyond his expectations. How did he do it? Even he was controlled by him? "Tang Jing, what's the matter with you?" Chiyu still didn't give up and asked. Tang Jing rolled his eyes. "How would I know? You're Chiyu. You're experienced and knowledgeable. Why don't you analyze it?" Although he had seen how powerful Chiyu was in the illusion, he was now only a remnant soul. Moreover, he was living in Tang Jing's body and hadn't shown it. This was very strange. Tang Jing couldn't help but suspect that Chiyu had ulterior motives. He was probably plotting something. Therefore, he naturally didn't treat Chiyu well. Chiyu had silently lurked in Tang Jing's body. He already knew everything about him. Therefore, he immediately heard a hint of displeasure. Just now, when you said those two words, there seemed to be a mysterious force that made me lose my ability to speak. As for what exactly happened, I really don't understand. Chiyu said. Tang Jing frowned suspiciously, guessing the authenticity of these words. In the end, he chose to believe these words because Chiyu didn't have to use this to lie to him. Moreover, there was still the inner demons. If Chiyu didn't say it, the inner demons would naturally say it in the future. Comparing the two, then they would know who was telling the truth. If Chiyu lied, then he would be risking Tang Deng's anger. Chiyu was a smart person and wouldn't take this risk for no reason. Tang Zheng muttered. When did his words have such great power? Just one sentence was enough to control these two souls. He still couldn't figure out the reason, but he was secretly glad. If he didn't have this ability, it would be strange if these two souls didn't annoy him to death. With this move, whoever didn't listen, he would shut them up. It worked. Inner demons, you can speak now. Tang Jing thought of this and showed great mercy. The inner demons finally understood that they were under someone else's roof and had to bow their heads. Although he was a very powerful person since ancient times, in front of Tang Jing, he still had to bow his head. Even if things have come to this, I still can't make you leave my body. Then the two of you should get along peacefully. You'd better be obedient. Otherwise, I won't be polite. Tang Jing sneered, just like how Grandmother Wolf faced Little Red Riding Hood. The two famous big shots were threatened by Tang Jing just like that, and no one would believe it even if it was said out loud. But Chiyu and the inner demons didn't dare to resist. Of course, Tang Jing could guess what they were thinking and didn't want to care. Tang Jing heaved a long sigh of relief and looked up, only to see that everyone was staring at him with burning eyes. Even the mysterious Lady of the Ninth Heaven and the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign had actually escaped from the illusion. In fact, since the inner demons failed to resist Chiyu, his influence on these two people had naturally ended. Now, the inner demons couldn't affect anyone at all. Unless he occupied Tang Zheng's body, otherwise, it was impossible for him to recover his previous magical power. The others didn't know this and were all staring at him intently. When they saw him look up, everyone's heart trembled. If he was an inner demon, then they would be in trouble. They wouldn't even have the chance to escape. The 100 Faces Star-Lord's feelings were the most complicated. He had never taken Tang Jing seriously, and even hated him to the bone. His good deeds had been ruined by him time and time again. This time, he narrowly escaped death. After knowing that the inner demons had entered Tang Zheng's body, the 100 Faces Star-Lord rejoiced but also felt that it was inconceivable. How did this Tang Jing do it? He didn't have the inner demons. This was almost impossible. For someone as powerful as the 100 Faces Star-Lord, it wasn't that he didn't have the inner demons. It was just that he had been suppressed and couldn't let the inner demons gain the upper hand. The Empyrean fairy looked exhausted. Just now, she had used up a lot of energy to avoid herself. Now, looking at Tang Zheng's appearance, she didn't know where she got the information that Tang Jing could turn danger into safety. As for Linger, although she looked very anxious, she was the most confident. She believed that her master would be fine. In her heart, her master was invincible and omnipotent. On the other hand, Tian Chanzi had two souls entangled in his body. The remnant soul wouldn't be satisfied until it saw the final result. As for Tian Chanzi, he was worried sick. Although he knew that Tang Jing usually had good luck, this was facing the inner demons. No matter how much he valued Tang Jing, he couldn't help but have little confidence. Why are you looking at me like that? Tang Jing asked with a strange expression. Wah, master, you're fine? Linger was like a skylark, flying into Tang Deng's arms. The others were so scared that their facial muscles twitched a few times. If the opponent was the inner demons, then Linger's life would be in danger. Tang Jing hugged Linger and smiled brightly. Linger, do you think something will happen to me? Linger shook her head like a rattledrum and said, Of course not. Linger has always believed that Master will be fine. What inner demons? How could they be master's match? Tang Jing heard this and laughed loudly. Linger is the most obedient. After saying this, he turned and stared at the 100 Faces Star Sovereign. Being swept by his gaze, the 100 Faces Star Sovereign's heart trembled. This feeling was absurd, and it made him furious. He scolded. Tang Jing, what are you looking at? Do you believe that I won't kill you? Ha, is that so? Then do you think you're a match for the inner demons? Tang Jing deliberately asked mysteriously. Inner demons? The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's expression became unnatural. He said, The inner demons no longer exist. Don't use them to scare me. Chapter 849. Tang Jing's meaningful smile made the 100 Transformation Star-Lord's hair stand on end. That was because he really couldn't figure out what had happened to Tang Jing. Although Tang Jing still looked like the old Tang Jing, the existence of the inner demons was still unknown. If the inner demons hadn't been destroyed, then he would be in danger. The 100 Transformation Star-Lord had already experienced the power of the inner demons. He was both angry and afraid of this fellow. Tang Jing walked step by step towards the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. The 100 Transformation Star-Lord retreated in panic and shouted, Stop! Don't come any closer! Tang Jing smiled evilly and said, Why, are you afraid? Don't come any closer! The 100 Transformation Star-Lord roared with all his might. Hee, do you think I'll let you leave if I don't come any closer? My inner demons want to unify the world, and I still need a pawn like you. Once I control you, you can charge into the enemy lines for me. Tang Jing sneered. The 100 Transformation Star-Lord knew very well what it felt like to have his fate in the hands of others. Naturally, he wasn't willing to end up like this. He had just suffered a lot at the hands of the inner demons. Seeing Tang Jing like this, he naturally didn't dare to suspect that Tang Jing wasn't the inner demons. He had already concluded that the inner demons must have controlled Tang Jing. After all, even with his cultivation, he couldn't contend against the inner demons, let alone a small Tang Jing. Seeing Tang Jing approaching, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord was burning with anxiety. He roared, I won't let you succeed! He actually didn't attack Tang Jing. Instead, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and rushed into the sky. He stomped on the cliff a few times and fled towards the top of the canyon at lightning speed. Stop right there! Tang Jing roared, scaring the 100 Transformation Star-Lord so much that he almost slipped and fell. Bang! With a loud bang, the entire canyon shook violently. The giant actually used both hands to grab onto the cliff and used all 4 limbs to climb out of the canyon. Seeing that the multiform Star-Lord and the giant had disappeared from the sky above the canyon, the corners of Tang Jing's mouth curled into a smug smile. Hee! Tang Jing laughed in a low voice. This multiform Star-Lord was really scared out of his wits by the inner demons. With just a few words, he actually managed to scare him into running away. In fact, although the inner demons were still in Tang Jing's body, the inner demon's abilities were restrained and could not be used at all. Unless he controlled Tang Jing's body, only then could he use that terrifying strength again. The 100 Change Star Sovereign did not know this at all, which was why he was scared away. In fact, Tang Jing's action was not entirely a prank. He did it because he saw the fatigue on the Empyrean Fairy's face. The Empyrean Fairy had been tortured by the inner demons and had used up a lot of her power. The remnant soul in Tian Chanzi's body was also weakening, and his strength had decreased sharply. Although the 100 Transformation Star-Lord's strength had decreased greatly, his team was obviously not strong enough. Moreover, the opponent had the giant. Therefore, to be safe, he did not want to fight the 100 Transformation Star-Lord directly for the time being. There were too many unknowns. He did not want anything to happen to his people. Therefore, he had to intimidate the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. However, the 100 Transformation Star-Lord was also a smart person. As long as he had time, he would definitely figure out the trick. By then, he would understand that he had been fooled by Tang Jing. However, by then, everyone would have recovered their power, and it would not be easy for him to deal with Tang Jing. Humph, young man, you are quite smart. You used my name to scare this person away. The inner demons said with mixed feelings. Tang Jing smiled and said, That's because he is too stupid. You are smart enough, but Chi Yu's remnant soul has been hiding in your body for so long, and you did not even notice it. You are really too smart. The inner demons mocked. Tang Jing was furious and said, Chi Yu, come out and tell me clearly. What is your purpose in hiding in my body? Isn't it obvious? Once the time is up, you will be reborn. The inner demons said. Chi Yu immediately retorted. Inner demons, will anyone believe your words? Tang Jing, think about it yourself. Did I do anything bad in your body? I even helped you subdue the sword spirit and defeated the sword god. Have you forgotten? If I wanted to harm you, why would I take the risk to help you? Tang Jing was moved. Chi Yu had indeed helped him a lot. Haha, what's so hard to explain? He was protecting this body, not your life. Young man, you can't be so easily fooled by him, right? The inner demons directly exposed him. Chi Yu was furious. Inner demons, no one will think you are mute if you don't talk. Nonsense. Seeing that the two of them were at a loss for words, Tang Jing frowned. He did not expect them to analyze anything useful from their conversation. The others had already surrounded them, their eyes filled with vigilance. After all, he had just called himself the inner demons. They could not help but be worried. Are you Tang Jing or the inner demons? The Empyrean fairy asked. Of course I am Tang Jing. Why don't you recognize me? Tang Jing smiled and said. Then why did you say that you are the inner demons? Of course it was to scare the 100 Faces Star Sovereign. He made us so scared. How could we let go of such a good opportunity to scare him? Don't doubt Master. He is Master, not the inner demons. Ling Er knows. Ling Er said as she hugged Tang Geng's arm. Xiao Bai also happily jumped onto Tang Geng's shoulder. He held his head and kept rubbing it, turning his hair into a chicken coop. Tang Jing grabbed Xiao Bai and pretended to be angry. Stop. However, Little White grinned, and actually did not give up, causing Tang Jing to be helpless. Tian Chanzi had been looking at Tang Jing with a scrutinizing gaze. After a long while he said, You are indeed not the inner demons. What about the inner demons? Did you really destroy them? Tian Chanzi's expression was a little excited. The inner demons have existed for so many years. No one has ever been able to destroy them. I did not expect them to die in your hands. You are wrong. The inner demons are not dead, Tang Jing said. Not dead? Tian Chanzi was shocked. How can he not be dead? If he is not dead, then why are you not under his control? Tang Jing hesitated. Since the inner demons were imprisoned here by Chi Yu and the Yellow Emperor, then the remnant soul in Tian Chanzi's body was probably related to Chi Yu. So, he said directly, because I have Chi Yu's remnant soul in my body. The two of them fought against each other, and no one could do anything to the other. Naturally, it led to this situation. Chi Yu? Tian Chanzi's voice suddenly raised a few octaves. You mean Chi Yu is not dead? Tang Jing saw him so excited and was about to say something. However, Chi Yu shouted in his body. Tang Jing, why are you telling him this? Do you know who he is? Who is he? Tang Jing was confused. This remnant soul was deliberately left on the bronze coffin by the Yellow Emperor, so it is the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. He is my sworn enemy. If he hears that I am not dead, how will he punish you? Chi Yu said bitterly. Tang Jing's head thumped. The Yellow Emperor and Chi Yu were sworn enemies. Since the Yellow Emperor knew that Chi Yu was not dead, he would not let him go. Sure enough, Tian Chanzi's eyes had changed. He was looking at Tang Jing with a murderous look. Chi Yu is not dead. I will never let him live in this world and bring disaster to the world. Tian Chanzi roared. He slapped Tang Jing with his palm. At such a close distance, even Tang Jing himself could not resist, let alone the others. He did not expect Tian Chanzi to attack him. For a moment, the situation was very critical. Chi Yu was so angry that he wanted to stomp his feet. He cursed. Tangjing, you are really stupid. Yellow Emperor, even if I, Chiyu, die, I will never forgive you. However, no matter how hard Chiyu shouted, there was nothing he could do. Stop! An angry roar burst out from Heaven Monk's mouth, only to see his palms steadily stopping in front of Tang Zheng's forehead. The wind from his palm blew at Tang Zheng's face, causing Tang Zheng's face to hurt. Tang Zheng was shocked. He quickly took a few steps back to avoid Tian Chanzi. As for the shout just now, he also heard it clearly. That was the real Tian Chanzi, not the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. Obviously, at the critical moment, Tian Chanzi tried his best to control his body and save Tang Zheng's life. I won't allow you to hurt Tang Zheng! Tian Chanzi roared hysterically. Tian Chanzi, you dare to resist me? The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor was furious. Humph, this is my body. I make the decisions. No matter who you are not qualified to make the decisions, let alone use my hands to hurt Tang Zheng. Tian Chanzi was aggressive. Chiyu chuckled. I didn't expect Tian Chanzi to save your life at the critical moment. Now you don't have to worry anymore. The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor is already at the end of its tether, and is rapidly weakening. Tian Chanzi can gradually control the body. As time passes, the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor will only become weaker and weaker. Then there is nothing to worry about. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. However, looking at Tian Chanzi talking to himself, he felt his heart ache. Shut up. If you dare to help Chiyu, I'll destroy your body. The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor threatened. Even if you destroy my body, I won't let you succeed. Tian Chanzi would rather die than submit. The two of them argued back and forth. Tian Chanzi's body trembled uncontrollably. It was obvious that he was in great pain. His own soul was fighting with the soul of the Yellow Emperor. Chiyu, do you have any way to help Tian Chanzi? Tang Zheng asked anxiously. Chiyu didn't care and said, Why are you worried about him? He won't die. As for the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor, he's dead for sure. The remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor is closely related to the bronze coffin. As soon as the bronze coffin is opened, his remnant soul will quickly weaken. The more time passes, the weaker his remnant soul will become. In the end, his soul will scatter. All you need to do is wait. Looking at Tian Chanzi, who had fallen to the ground and was constantly twitching, and even talking to himself, Tang Zheng was in great pain. He wanted to help, but didn't know how. As time passed by, Tian Chanzi's struggles gradually subsided. Finally, his legs kicked, and he stopped moving. Tang Zheng was stunned. Could it be that he was dead? Chapter 850. Tian Chanzi slowly opened his eyes, relaxed his eyebrows, and grinned. Silly boy, even if you wish for me to die, I won't die. My life is big. He stretched his muscles and bones, and sure enough, he was fine. He was full of energy. Seeing this familiar smile, Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. He punched Tian Chanzi's shoulder and said, It's good that you're not dead, it's good that you're not dead. Seeing how concerned you are about me, you can't bear for me to die, right? Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and laughed strangely. I just can't bear for you to die. I still have a lot of things for you to do. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. How heartless. Tian Chanzi crawled up, patted his clothes, and said, Damn it, if I, Tian Chanzi, was not strong enough, wouldn't I have been taken away by that remnant soul? Humph, this body of mine was obtained with great difficulty. How can I let him off so easily? You've been missing for a while. What happened? Why did you come to the prehistoric heavenly tomb? Tang Zheng asked. Sigh, it's a long story. Tian Chanzi sighed, and spoke tirelessly. It turned out that when he had chased all the way to the island nation, he had discovered that the strange phenomenon in the sky was caused by the mountain river blood sacrifice array. Furthermore, this was led by the 100 Transformation Star Lord, and it had already been completed. The demon clan had already returned, and he was powerless to reverse the situation. However, according to his observations, there were not many demon clan-s who had returned, so he was relieved. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he had been tracking the demon clan and discovered that they had actually split into two groups. One group directly took the ship back to Huaxia with great fanfare, and the other group quietly returned to Nanyang. After that, they took a big detour and entered Huaxia from the southwest border, and directly snuck into the 10,000 huge mountains. Tian Chanzi followed them all the way. He knew that the 100 Faces Star Sovereign had a deep meaning behind his actions. The demons on the ships were there to attract the enemy's attention. The most important thing was the people returning to the 100,000 mountains. When the Heaven Monk realized that they were actually plotting something, he observed them from afar. Unexpectedly, one day, he did not know what the 100 Transformation Star Lord did, but something actually broke out of the ground from the graves in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. That battle was extremely huge, and it caused a huge tremor between heaven and earth, like an earthquake. The tremors detected by the outside world were caused by this. Tian Chanzi discovered that the things that broke out of the ground were actually sets of white bones. It was obvious that they were left behind after death, and were the experts from the ancient times who were buried in the prehistoric heavenly tomb. He could clearly feel that his strength was rising, and finally reached a level that he could not reach. Then, he uncontrollably fought the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, and found that he was actually a match for him. Later, when Tang Jing and the others arrived and opened the huge bronze coffin, the power of the remnant soul that controlled his body decreased sharply. "What about the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul? Was it destroyed by you?" Tang Jing asked with concern. Tian Chanzi scratched his head, and said noncommittally, "It should have been destroyed. I can no longer feel his existence." "What do you mean by should have been destroyed?" Tang Jing rolled his eyes speechlessly. "He is so strong, how would I know if he was truly destroyed? In any case, I have already regained control of my body, and I can no longer feel his existence. Everything is over, so you don't need to worry," Tian Chanzi said casually. Tang Jing looked at him deeply, and in the end, he nodded helplessly. I also have to thank the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul. Although he is no longer here, and my cultivation has decreased a lot from my previous peak, it is still much higher than before. Now I am already at the 9th stage of the Yuanying realm, and am only a step away from the deity transformation realm," Tian Chanzi said excitedly. This was indeed a pleasant surprise. Although it was dangerous, he felt that it was extremely worth it. If it was any other cultivator, they would most likely clamor for this opportunity. Of course, if the huge bronze coffin had not been opened, then the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul would not have been damaged. Then, whether or not Tian Chanzi would have been able to regain control of his body was unknown. In short, this was Tian Chanzi's opportunity. When Tang Jing heard this, he was happy for him, and said, "This is your compensation. Your strength has increased greatly, so when we face the 100 Transformation Star Lord in the future, we will have a greater chance of victory." Although the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Transformation Star Lord had not yet fought, Tang Jing believed that the Empyrean Fairy would definitely not lose to the 100 Transformation Star Lord, so their strength was guaranteed. Tian Chanzi nodded, and looked at Tang Jing worriedly, and said, "The inner demons and Qi Yu are in your body at the same time. Will your body be okay?" Tang Jing also thought it through. Since he could not chase away the two of them, there was no need to be entangled in this matter. Moreover, there were two of them who could balance each other. If there was only one, then it would be terrible, and he would have to be on guard against him at all times. However, Tang Jing also felt that he was unlucky, as if he had to deal with this kind of thing. Back then, it was Tian Chanzi who lived in his body, and now it was Qi Yu and the inner demons. Moreover, one was more powerful than the other. As for whether the future would be a blessing or a disaster, he had no way to predict it for the time being. He could only block soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir, and take one step at a time. "The baleful Inchi here is very strong. Let's leave this place." Tian Chanzi looked at the canyon where the Inchi was raging and urged. Tang Jing was about to say that they should leave, but the war soul in his hand began to buzz and tremble, and the sword's cry did not stop. Master, this baleful yin qi is useful to me, the sword spirit suddenly said. Tang Jing suddenly realized that the war soul sword was originally named after the war soul. The war soul was a baleful yin qi, so naturally, the war soul sword also contained an extremely strong baleful yin qi. Later on, when the war soul and the sword soul fused, the baleful yin qi became even stronger. However, Tang Jing did not go to many places with dense baleful yin qi. The baleful yin qi in this canyon could actually suppress and imprison the inner demons. It could be seen how powerful it was. Alright, then you can absorb this baleful yin qi. Tang Jing was overjoyed. He knew that if the war soul sword absorbed it, its quality would definitely improve. The war soul sword was already a heaven-level magical wave, but he didn't know what it would be like if it was upgraded. Everyone, wait a moment. The baleful yin qi here is so strong. If an ordinary person came here, they would definitely suffer. Why don't I use the war soul sword to absorb it? After Tang Jing finished speaking, he threw the war soul sword into the air and shouted, "Go!" The war soul sword floated in the air. Immediately, a strong suction force came from the war soul sword. In an instant, a whirlpool appeared on the war soul sword. The aura of the heaven and earth was in chaos. The evil wind roared and all the baleful yin qi surged in. In an instant, the war soul sword's light increased greatly. The sword light was tens of thousands of feet long, illuminating the originally dark canyon as bright as day. So. Streams of sword qi danced in all directions, leaving deep marks on the cliffs of the canyon after being struck by the sword qi. After a long time, all of this calmed down. The air in the canyon was refreshed. Without the baleful yin qi, it actually seemed a little warm. Whiz! With a flash of sword light, the war soul sword flew back into Tang Jing's hands. Tang Jing looked at it carefully. There was actually a strange symbol on the war soul sword. This symbol was curved, as if it had a profound meaning. Tang Jing looked at it and actually couldn't understand it. What is this? The others all came over and stared at the symbol, puzzled. Tian Chanzi pinched his chin and muttered to himself for a long time. I have never seen this symbol before. Did the war soul sword not have it before? Tang Jing firmly shook his head. Chapter 851. The sword spirit's voice sounded. Master, I feel that the war soul sword has undergone a qualitative change. As for the mysterious symbol, it seems to contain some kind of mysterious power that even I am unable to completely understand. Tang Jing was stunned. Even the sword spirit was unable to understand it. What did that mean? As for the quality of the war soul sword, Tang Jing could clearly feel that it had increased by a large amount. Tang Jing, your war soul sword has already left its mortal body and transcended into a saint. Qi Yu's voice suddenly sounded. Transcendence into a saint? Tang Jing was shocked. He had never heard of these words before. What did they mean? There are thousands of time weapon magic treasures, but there are corresponding ranks. In the past, you only understood the ranks of mortal-grade magic treasures, such as Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow. However, there are other ranks of magic treasures. Breaking away from the mortal body and transcending into a saint, then the magic treasure will become a holy artifact, and at this time, the magic treasure will become even more powerful. But there is one thing, all holy artifacts must have an artifact spirit. Your war soul sword has a sword spirit. This is the key to advancing to a holy artifact. It seemed that in order to restore a good impression, Qi Yu spoke in detail. There are still many ranks of holy artifacts, and there are a total of 6 grades. Grade 1 is the lowest, and Grade 6 is the best. Your war soul sword has just crossed the threshold of Grade 1 holy artifact. Angle. Grade 1 holy artifact. Tang Jing could not help but stroke the war soul sword. He had never thought that there would be a new level above the heaven-grade magic treasure. For a moment, he was filled with emotions. In ancient times, there were many holy artifacts, But after the Battle of Zhualu, the experts fell, and the number of holy artifacts gradually decreased. Especially in magic treasures, it was extremely difficult for an artifact spirit to appear, which was the key to restricting the appearance of holy artifacts. In ancient times, the weapon refiners refined magic treasures with artifact spirits, directly becoming holy artifacts. Later on, there were more and more weapon refiners, and there were only mortal-grade magic treasures left in the world. There were very few holy artifacts. Tang Jing nodded. No wonder Tian Chanzi did not know about the holy artifact, and never told me about it. It turns out that the holy artifact had already gradually disappeared in the long river of history. Actually, you already possess a sacred artifact. You just didn't know about it, Qiyu said. Tang Jing was startled. He suddenly had an idea, and said, "You mean the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrows?" These were the only two magic treasures he had on him that he had never been able to see through. Smart. These two magic treasures are the divine weapons of Hui from ancient times. They are both sacred artifacts. However, you are temporarily unable to communicate with their artifact spirits, so you have yet to fully unleash their profundities. Tang Jing's heart could not help but thump. He had always relied heavily on the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrows, but it turned out that he had not fully unleashed their power. If he had truly unleashed their full power, what kind of scene would that be? He really couldn't imagine. Then, are there any other grades above sacred artifacts? Tang Jing asked. He had learned his lesson. He had always thought that the heaven-level magic treasure was the limit. He didn't expect himself to be a frog at the bottom of a well. I'll leave this for you to discover. It's too early for you to know now. It will only increase your frustration and disturb your mind. It's not beneficial to your cultivation, Qiyu said, obviously not wanting to tell him. Tang Jing frowned and said, "You don't want to tell me, right? Do you have any other unknown motives?" He no longer trusted Qiyu, so of course he wouldn't completely believe his words. "It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. I don't want to say any more," Qiyu said helplessly. "Ha ha ha, Qiyu, how does it feel to eat your own medicine?" The inner demons suddenly laughed out loud. "Young man, Qiyu did not lie to you this time. It is indeed not a good thing for you to know in advance. It is not beneficial to your cultivation." "Hun, do I need you to say good things for me?" Qiyu didn't appreciate it at all. "Of course I don't want to say good things for you. I just don't want to trouble you." The inner demons snorted and retorted. Tang Jing let out a sigh of relief. The inner demons and Qiyu's words were compared to each other. Qiyu really didn't lie. He couldn't help but feel gratified. These two souls kept each other in check and balance, which was indeed beneficial to him. Otherwise, if he listened to one side, he wouldn't even know if he was dragged into a ditch. Tang Jing was talking with the two souls, but he didn't notice that the Empyrean fairy was staring at the war spirit sword with a complicated expression. She muttered to herself, "You actually upgraded a magic treasure to a sacred artifact. It's really inconceivable." Tang Jing suddenly heard this and stared at the Empyrean fairy as if he had just woken up from a dream. He asked, "You also know about the sacred artifact?" The Empyrean fairy nodded. "Of course I know." Tang Jing was delighted and patted his head. He was really too stupid. The Empyrean fairy was also an ancient person and had seen a lot. He was afraid that she was even more knowledgeable than Tian Chanzi. He could ask her these questions. Were there a lot of sacred artifacts in ancient times? The Empyrean fairy curled her lips and said, "Do you think sacred artifacts are cabbages?" "How could there be a lot? When I was still young, there were already not many sacred tools. Only those with high statuses and powerful strength could be equipped with them. It was impossible for ordinary people to possess sacred tools. Otherwise, they would be met with a fatal disaster. You should understand the principle of a man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime, right?" Tang Jing nodded. "Of course I understand." "Hey, excuse me, what is a sacred artifact? You are confusing me." Tian Chanzi hurriedly shouted with a suspicious face. "Tian Chanzi, you didn't have a sacred artifact at that time, right? I've never heard of it. Tian Chanzi shook his head. This is very clear. Sacred artifacts gradually decreased in the long river of history until they finally disappeared. Even if one or two artifacts were passed down occasionally, people didn't know that they were sacred artifacts. For example, Tian Chanzi, you only had 4 magic artifacts at that time: heaven, earth, black, and yellow. By the way, did you have an artifact spirit at that time? Tang Jing spoke frankly with assurance and gradually sorted out his thoughts. Of course there was an artifact spirit, but it was pitifully few. If a magic artifact had an artifact spirit, its power would definitely increase greatly. Tian Chanzi said with longing. He had once imagined that his magic artifact had an artifact spirit, but it was something that could only be encountered by chance. It had to be at the right time, place, and people to have an artifact spirit. Tang Jing nodded and said, but even if a magic artifact had an artifact spirit, it hadn't been promoted to a sacred artifact, right? Tian Chanzi shook his head blankly. Didn't I tell you before? I haven't even heard of the word sacred artifact. That's right. Although there are occasionally artifacts in the world, there is no way for them to be promoted to sacred artifacts. Therefore, this is the key to why sacred artifacts are unknown. But I want to tell you now, sacred artifacts are more powerful than heaven, earth, black, and yellow level magic artifacts, and they must have an artifact spirit. Tian Chanzi was enlightened. His eyes stared straight at the War Soul sword, licked his lips, and said with envy, "You brat, you're really lucky. You actually have a sacred sword. Do you know how many people don't even dare to dream about this?" Tang Jing laughed, his finger gently brushed the War Soul sword, and said, "This is called strength, understand?" Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and joked, "Strength my ass, you've taken all the good things." Tang Jing knew that this was probably closely related to the Sword Soul. Without a doubt, the Sword Soul was originally Chiyu's item, so it was probably not as powerful as a sacred artifact. Although the Sword Soul's previous consciousness had been erased, its essence had not changed. Adding on the fact that it had absorbed so much baleful yin qi, it was able to undergo a qualitative change. It was also because the Sword Soul's previous consciousness had been erased that although it knew that its quality had increased, it still did not know that it had become a sacred artifact. "Tang Jing, how do you know about the sacred artifact?" Empyrean Fairy asked curiously. "Didn't I tell you that there are 2 more souls in my body?" "They told me." Empyrean Fairy looked deeply at Tang Jing and said, "Qi Yu and the inner demons are people from ancient times, even earlier than me. When I was young, I occasionally heard rumors about Qi Yu. They are not good people, so you have to be careful." Seeing that she was so concerned about him, Tang Jing smiled and nodded to thank her. "Preposterous! Who is this little girl? How dare she talk about me like that?" Inner demons shouted unyieldingly. "You are not a good person, so why can't you say it?" Tang Jing retorted. "If you are noisy again, I will directly silence you." Inner demons was angry, but there was nothing they could do. They coldly snorted a few times and did not dare to complain anymore. Empyrean Fairy is the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven. This Emperor of Heaven is a person who came after us. It is said that he is also very powerful. Inner demons, of course you don't know about them," Chiyu suddenly said. Tang Jing's head thumped. Chiyu must have secretly hidden in his body to know about these things. In the future, he must be wary of him. There were some things he could not let him know. "Chiyu, do you know anything about the Emperor of Heaven?" Tang Jing asked. Chiyu smiled bitterly. "He came after me, so how could I know? However, since Ji Wuxiang said that Fuxi is a descendant of Fuxi, then this Emperor of Heaven is naturally not an ordinary person. However, in ancient times, the Fuxi clan had already declined. I just didn't expect them to rise again and produce an Emperor of Heaven." Tang Jing was deep in thought. Fuxi was a legendary figure, and was even more distant than Qi Yu and the Yellow Emperor. However, according to Qi Yu, Fuxi clan had already declined in ancient times, so Qi Yu knew very little about Fuxi clan. However, there was one thing that Tang Jing was sure that Qiyu definitely knew about, and that was the four symbols venerables and the witch clan. Back then, the witch clan was sealed by Qiyu, so it was impossible for him not to know. Moreover, the four symbols venerables were damaged. If they were not repaired as soon as possible, it would always be a worry for Tang Jing. When he asked this question, before Qiyu could answer, the inner demons had already shouted. What, you have already subdued the four symbols venerables? Hee Qiyu, why have all your treasures been taken away by this young man? Hee young man, well done! Chapter 852. The information revealed by the inner demons shocked Tang Jing greatly. He hurriedly said, Qiyu, now that the four symbols venerable is damaged, you must know how to repair it, right? Qiyu hesitated. In fact, he did have bad intentions. He had been waiting for an opportunity to seize Tang Jing's body, but now that the inner demons had interfered, he had no choice but to appear. He was completely passive. Of course, he did not want Tang Jing to recover the four symbols venerable, but now that he was asked this question, if he did not tell the truth, he would not be able to get away with it. Yes, I know, Qiyu said helplessly. As long as you return to the witch tribe, there will naturally be a way to repair it. The four symbols venerable has always been nourished by the ley lines of the 100,000 mountains. As long as it is connected to the ley lines of the 100,000 mountains, everything will be done naturally. The square of the witch tribe is a huge formation. As long as the four symbols venerable returns, the formation will naturally be activated. The four symbols venerable can absorb the power of the ley lines and recover. Ley lines of the earth? Tang Jing had a strange look on his face. Yes, ley lines of the earth are the power of the earth. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth is not only contained in the air, but also in everything. Even the soil on the ground contains spiritual qi. However, the power of ley lines of the earth cannot be absorbed by ordinary people. Only through a magical formation can it be drawn out and used for oneself. You guys, the Jiuli tribe has many strange spells. This is something I have never heard of. The inner demons clicked his tongue in wonder. Qiyu snorted and said angrily, How can you know all about the magic of the Jiuli tribe? Is that so? Since it is so magical, then say it. Young man, I believe it will be very useful to you. Force him to say it. The inner demons gloated. Inner demons, you? Qiyu flew into a rage. Although Tang Jing also wanted to know the magic of the Jiuli tribe, he did not want to push Qiyu too hard. That would be counterproductive. Stop arguing. Qiyu, I won't force you to tell me the 9 Li tribe's magic. You just need to tell me why you imprisoned the witch tribe in the 100,000 mountains back then. This was a problem that had always troubled Tang Jing, and even the shaman tribe. Back then, the 100 Faces Star Lord had analyzed that only Qiyu himself could imprison the witch tribe, and Tang Jing had also seen Qiyu lose in that illusion, and even had his heart dug out. However, for a powerhouse like Qiyu, even if his heart was dug out, he might not necessarily die. For example, his heart of Qiyu had been preserved, and there was even a strand of remnant soul left in it. Qiyu hesitated, but seeing that Tang Jing seemed to be impatient, he quickly said, I'll tell you. The shaman tribe was indeed imprisoned by me in the 100,000 great mountains. Back in the Battle of Zhuelu, after my defeat, my soul scattered, turning into strands of remnant souls to do what I have yet to do. One of them was to imprison the shaman tribe. The shaman tribe is a branch of the 9 Li tribe. Why did you only imprison the shaman tribe? Tang Jing asked curiously. Because the origin of the 9 Li tribe is the shaman tribe. It's just that too many years have passed and many people no longer remember this matter. The shaman tribe is the core of the 9 Li tribe. As long as the shaman tribe is not destroyed, the 9 Li tribe will have the chance to create glory again. I know that after the Yellow Emperor won, there will no longer be a place for the shaman tribe in this world. I will imprison the shaman tribe in the 100,000 great mountains to recuperate, and wait for the future to rise again. Qiyu spoke frankly with assurance. This content made Tang Jing's emotions surge. So the shaman tribe had such a great background. Back then, the core of the entire Ninely tribe was the shaman tribe. Even the elders of the shaman tribe did not know about this. You're already dead. How can the shaman tribe make a comeback? Tang Jing asked again. Chi Yu chuckled. Hee, the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. Back then, the Yellow Emperor won. In the future there will be a day when I, Chi Yu, will win. Hasn't the shaman tribe already broken through the restriction and regained their freedom? If it wasn't for my coincidence, how could the shaman tribe regain their freedom? Haha, this is the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. Everything is possible. How can you understand the mysteries within? Tang Zheng's heart trembled. In the unseen world, there were too many mysterious things that he was still unable to comprehend. However, since Chi Yu had made such arrangements, he was afraid that he truly had the confidence to do so. Although time had passed and the sea had turned into mulberry fields, and after tens of thousands of years, this day had finally arrived. But in Chi Yu's heart, this day had arrived, and that was his victory. The shaman tribe is not as powerful as before. How can you believe that they can recreate the glory of the past? Chi Yu laughed. In this world, there is nothing that the shaman tribe can't do. When the time is right, the shaman tribe will rise. The Jiuli tribe will reappear in the world and achieve hegemony. Listening to his crazy laughter, Tang Deng's emotions surged. Talking to this kind of person was really a test of one's willpower. If he was not careful, he would be bewitched by him. Don't listen to his shameless boasting. If the shaman tribe was really so powerful, they wouldn't have been defeated by the Yellow Emperor. The inner demons suddenly jumped out and mocked. Inner demons, you and I are irreconcilable. Chi roared. Come on, you couldn't do anything to me back then. Now you can't do anything to me. The inner demons were ready to provoke him. Stop talking. Tang Zheng roared. As expected, the two of them quieted down. No matter how powerful they were in the past, at this moment, in Tang Zheng's body, they had no choice but to submit to Tang Jing. I'll ask you one last question. Tang Jing could see that the inner demons were getting impatient, so he said, Okay, I'll answer one more question. Don't ask me in the future. I won't answer even if you ask? Chi was obviously in a bad mood. Tang Jing did not care and asked directly. Xiaobai was hatched in the holy land of the shaman tribe. What is its origin? Ever since Xiaobai was hatched, the restriction that imprisoned the shaman tribe was automatically removed. Was this also set up by you in the past? Chi was silent. The inner demon said first. The origin of this little guy of yours is not simple. Even I can't see through it. Chi, don't be silent. Hurry up and tell me, what is its origin? Chi-Yu's voice became very old. After a long time, he said, I can't answer this question. How can that be? Didn't you put it in the holy land of the shaman tribe? Tang Jing was shocked and incredulous. It's true that I put it in the holy land, but what I put in back then was an egg, right? Chi-Yu asked. Yes. Back then, the first time Tang Jing saw Xiao Bai, it was an egg floating on the fiery red magma. Moreover, there were murals in the cave. The murals showed a person with 9 main meridians holding the egg with both hands. Then, the egg emitted a burst of white light and nothing else. He tried to imitate it, but to his surprise, the egg actually hatched after absorbing his true qi. After a dazzling white light, little white descended into the world. Now, Chi-Yu said that even he did not know the origin of Xiao Bai, which seemed to be a little unreasonable. Chi-Yu, since you said you would answer my question, what's the point of hiding it? Just answer it directly and I won't ask you any other questions. Tang Jing thought that Chi-Yu was lying perfunctorily. How am I hiding it? I really don't know the origin of Xiao Bai. Well, then I'll tell you everything. You can judge whether I'm lying to you or not. I'm all ears. I've never seen Xiao Bai before. I've only seen it in the shape of an egg. This egg has been passed down from the witch tribe. It's the sacred object of the witch tribe. No, it's the sacred object of the entire Ninely tribe. However, Only the patriarch of each generation knows about the existence of the sacred object. The origin of this sacred object can no longer be verified, but rumor has it that it was born when the world was created. There was once an almighty ancestor of the shaman tribe who successfully hatched this egg and became your little white. That is the sacred beast of the shaman tribe. But later on, the sacred beast was said to have died and left behind an egg, which has been secretly worshipped by the witch tribe. I've also thought of a way to hatch it, but I've never succeeded. However, I also engraved that possibility in the murals, because the ancestors of the witch tribe said that this way, it could be hatched. Sacred beast! Tang Jing was shocked, and subconsciously stroked Xiao Bai, who was on his shoulder. Did this little guy have such a great background? However, it was not the egg that was born when the world was created, but its descendant. Even so, it could be seen that its family background was actually related to the creation of the world. Tang Jing was shocked and sighed, and a storm was set off in his heart. Because it's a sacred object, it has a mysterious power, so I used it as the core of the formation. Only by activating it and making it hatch can I unlock the formation and remove the restriction. I didn't expect you to succeed by accident. Even you were unable to hatch Xiao Bai back then. Why did you make it so difficult? Aren't you afraid that no one will be able to hatch it? Chiyu said firmly. Since the ancestor has hatched it before, it means that there is a chance, so I also believe that it will succeed. If it doesn't succeed, it means that the day of the witch tribe's revival has not arrived. As long as it succeeds, the witch tribe's sacred beast will descend into the world, which means that the witch tribe will rise again. Tang Jing's heart moved, and he sneered. Xiao Bai was hatched by me. He won't help you for your so-called hegemony, because he only listens to me. Chiyu was silent, and did not answer. The inner demons praised. Amazing, amazing, Chiyu, your scheme is so powerful, I really admire you. I'm afraid that even the Yellow Emperor back then did not expect you to have so many tricks up your sleeves, right? Chiyu snorted, and did not comment. Young man, let me tell you why he has evil intentions towards you. He has been lurking in your body all this time, waiting for the day when he will occupy your body, then control Xiao Bai and complete his hegemony. Because if he changed to another body, he would not be able to control Xiao Bai at all. What a good scheme. The inner demons laughed. Tang Jing felt a chill. Chiyu, this time bomb, had calculated so well. This time, if the inner demons did not coincidentally enter his body, Chiyu would be in great trouble one day, and he would not be able to resist. In the end, Chiyu occupied his body, and Xiao Bai would definitely think that it was him, so he would obediently listen to Chiyu. Chapter 853. Seeing Tang Zhang's ashen face, Tian Chanzi and the others hurriedly asked him what was going on. Tang Jing shook his head. There was no need to spread this matter. Since he knew about this matter, he had to be extra vigilant against Chiyu and not let him succeed. Let's leave this place. Since Chiyu didn't want to talk, Tang Jing could only give up and say this. What do we do with this bronze coffin? Tian Chanzi pointed at the huge object in front of them and asked. Tang Zheng's eyes turned and he curiously said, The inner demon's body is no different from a normal person's body. Why do they have to make such a big bronze coffin? This is the masterpiece of Chiyu and the Yellow Emperor. This bronze coffin can absorb all of the evil Yin energy between heaven and earth. This canyon is the place where the evil Yin energy is the densest. With such a large bronze coffin placed here, the coffin can absorb even more evil Yin energy. It's as thick as water and wraps around me. Otherwise, how could it have trapped me for so many years? The inner demons hatefully said. Tang Jing suddenly realized that the reason the bronze coffin was so big was not to store the inner demons, but to store the evil Yin energy. He was like a standard in a glass bottle, surrounded by the evil Yin energy that was like water. Hearing Tang Zheng's explanation, the others also suddenly realized. Square root, destroy this damn bronze coffin for me. I get angry just looking at it. The inner demons urged. Tang Jing suddenly had an idea. He chuckled, and with a wave of his hand, he put it into Summer World, but he didn't destroy it. Why did you put it away? Why didn't you destroy it? Tang Jing shrugged and said, This bronze coffin can absorb evil energy, so it can be considered a treasure. It would be a pity to destroy it. Even if it doesn't have any use, it's still an antique. There's probably only one such large bronze coffin in the world, so it's worth a lot. The inner demons were speechless. The few of them went up the canyon and looked down. The canyon was still gloomy and filled with corpses of demonic beasts. This time, more than half of the demonic beasts in the 100,000 mountains had died, and the 100 transformation star sovereign had suffered heavy losses. Where are we going now? Tian Chanzi asked. Tang Jing already had a plan. He said, Let's return to the shaman tribe first. The 4 symbols venerable is damaged. I need to repair it first. The group naturally did not object. They returned along the way, and when they saw the broken tombs, their expressions did not look good. These ancient experts, even in death, could not rest in peace. They were awakened by the 100 transformation Star-Lord using a secret technique. They charged and broke through the enemy lines, and in the end, not even their corpses remained. After leaving the prehistoric heavenly tomb, the air was clear. However, it was already late. The few of them rested not far away for the night. In the darkness of the night, there seemed to be countless pairs of eyes staring at them, but they acted as if they did not see them. Tang Jing knew that the 100 transformation star sovereign must have sent demonic beasts to secretly monitor them. This was unavoidable, so why not let him see it openly? In any case, it wouldn't be long before he guessed that he had been tricked by Tang Jing. The next day, at dawn, the few of them made a long journey to the shaman tribe. The shaman tribe seemed to be in ruins. Back then, in order to take out the heaven and earth profound stone under the plaza, Tang Jing had dug up the entire plaza. Therefore, it was a complete mess. Seeing that, Tang Jing's heart skipped a beat. The plaza was destroyed. Was the array still there? In the end, it proved that his worries were unnecessary. The array formation that Chi Yu had set up was obviously not just on the surface. Even if the stone slabs on the surface of the plaza were all destroyed, the array formation was still intact. Tang Jing summoned the 4 symbols venerable. When the gigantic body appeared, it immediately split into 2, then into 4, and then into 4. They automatically walked to the corresponding place and stopped moving. It was as if they had returned to their original appearance when they were protecting the shaman clan. Looking at this familiar scene, Tang Jing could not help but feel a little absent-minded. He still remembered the shocking scene when he walked out of the house and saw the 4 symbols venerable for the first time. It will take at least a day for the 4 symbols venerable to fully recover, Chi Yu said. Then we'll stay here for a day, Tang Jing said without hesitation. The others agreed. Fortunately, these houses were built very firmly. Although they had been gone for a long time, they were not in a dilapidated state. After tidying them up, they could still be lived in. The Empyrean fairy seemed to like the environment here. She took a deep breath and said, This place is much better than the big cities outside. Tang Jing could not help but laugh. She was an ancient person and had long been used to the ancient environment. Of course, she would have such feelings. However, speaking of which, if the 100,000 mountains were developed, it would definitely be more beautiful than any scenic spot in the world. Of course, this was just his imagination. It was impossible to realize. There were still many monsters lurking in the 100,000 mountains. How could ordinary people get close? The Empyrean fairy leaped up like a dancing fairy. She flew up to the top of a branch and looked into the distance. Linger did not know why, but she pursed her lips and actually looked a little sad. Her eyes were red. Linger, what's wrong? Master, this place is very similar to my home. A long time ago, I lived in the mountains with my grandfather. The scenery there was also very beautiful. If my grandfather was still here, he would definitely like this place. Tang Jing held Linger's hand and encouraged her. Linger, be good. Grandfather's spirit in heaven also wants to see you happy. Don't be sad. Linger nodded. Linger is not sad. Linger has a master. Linger is very happy. Master, you said that if I lived here, it would definitely be very interesting, just like when I was young. Linger spun around on the spot and smiled brightly. This is the old land of the Witch clan. They have lived here for countless years, so they must have feelings for it. Although they are forced to leave their homes, this place must be a concern for them. If there is a chance in the future, we will return here and build this place up. Tang Jing's heart moved, and this thought popped up in his mind. Tang Jing stroked Linger's hair and laughed. That day will come. Really? Linger was overjoyed. Seeing Tang Jing nod, her excited face flushed red. She hugged Tang Geng's neck and kissed him on the face. Ugh! Tang Jing froze on the spot as if he had been immobilized. Linger was like a child who had done something wrong. She pursed her lips and said, Master, don't be angry with Linger. Linger couldn't help it, so she didn't notice. Looking at her aggrieved look, Tang Jing sighed. She was an innocent little girl. This was just an expression of her emotions, and there was no deeper meaning. He let out a long sigh and nodded. Linger, don't cry. I don't blame you. Just remember not to kiss others in the future. It's not good. Linger nodded like she was pounding garlic. Linger will remember. Linger will never kiss others. She meant that she would only kiss Tang Jing. Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't say anything, but from the corner of his eye, he noticed that the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi were looking at him from afar. Tian Chanzi even had a meaningful smile on his face, which made Tang Jing roll his eyes helplessly. Who knew what this old guy was thinking about? Master, look at the four symbols venerable. Linger called out suddenly. Tang Jing quickly looked over and saw the four symbols venerable's body emitting a faint glow. He was overjoyed. It really worked. This time, Chiyu didn't lie to him. Since the inner demon said that the four symbols venerable was so powerful, then he probably hadn't used its full power yet. He would have to slowly discover its power in the future. Master, look at your feet. Linger called out again. Tang Jing looked down and found that there were still no changes on the ground. He hurriedly circulated his energy and found that a surge of energy was flowing toward the four symbols venerable. The energy of the ley lines. Tang Jing immediately remembered what Chiyu said. This was the formation gathering the energy of the ley lines, which was the spiritual energy in the soil. Master, look at Linger. Wow, good job. Something is drilling into the soles of Linger's feet. Suddenly, Linger made a big fuss and giggled incessantly. Hee, so comfortable. It also feels like I'm scratching an itch. Wow, Master, my true energy is increasing. Really? Tang Jing was shocked. Although he felt the surge of energy flowing through his feet, he didn't have the slightest reaction. Ling actually had a reaction. It was really strange. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. That's right, since this energy could be injected into the four symbols venerable, then it could also be used by Linger. Because Linger was transformed from a ginseng, absorbing the spiritual energy in the soil was a natural thing. Linger, focus and absorb as much of this energy as possible. Tang Jing instructed. Yes, Linger will listen to Master. Linger nodded and circulated her energy. In an instant, Linger's body was suffused with a sparkling and translucent light. Roots actually grew from her feet and pierced into the ground. The energy entered her body through the roots. Upon seeing this, the Empyrean Fairy and Tian Chanzi also gathered around and watched this scene curiously. Tian Chanzi clicked his tongue in wonder and said, This girl is really lucky. Just now, I took a look at this large formation. It's really amazing. The spiritual energy in the entire 100,000 mountains is converging here. Chiyu set up this formation in the past is really too amazing. When this converging energy enters the body, it will quickly transform into vital chi and increase the cultivation level. It's much faster than this girl's cultivation speed. The Empyrean Fairy also nodded. This is her opportunity. It's harder for plants to cultivate into spirits than animals, because animals have their own consciousness. With consciousness, cultivation will be much easier. It's very difficult for plants to cultivate their own consciousness, so the demonic beasts you see are almost all animals. Tang Jing suddenly understood. He hadn't thought about this problem before. It turned out that Linger's current situation was really a huge opportunity. She's simple and honest, so it's a blessing for her to be taken in by you. You can protect her. Otherwise, if she falls into the hands of other people or demonic beasts, she'll be a great tonic. Eating her will not only increase one's lifespan, but also increase one's power. Tang Sheng's head trembled and he said, "Stop, don't say any more. I'll protect Ling and not let her come to any harm." Chapter 854. As time passed, Linger's entire body was bathed in a burst of light. When the sky gradually darkened and the light dissipated, her eyes flashed with a bright light. Her face immediately blossomed into a smile as she cheered. "Master, Linger has become powerful." Saying this, she stretched out her arm and a vine shot out from her palm. With a bang, it struck a distant rock and the rock immediately shattered. This move was as fast as lightning and as powerful as thunder. It was definitely a realm only an expert could reach. Tang Jing stared at her without blinking and cried out in surprise. "Linger, your cultivation has actually reached the 9th grade of Anidia." Linger's original cultivation was only at the early stage of Anidia. Now, she had actually jumped to the 9th grade of Anidia. It was truly a rocket speed. "You're much more powerful than me," Tang Jing sincerely praised. Linger's face was like a peach blossom as she happily said, "Linger is not as powerful as Master. Master is the most powerful. The two of you should stop flattering each other. Linger is in a special situation. The array formation in this square is indeed extraordinary. The power it gathers is no small matter. In addition, Linger's body is a condensation of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Naturally, her ability to absorb and store energy is much stronger than normal people. Otherwise, if a normal person absorbed so much energy, they would probably have exploded long ago," Empyrean Fairy explained. Tang Jing suddenly understood. "So that's how it is. No matter what, Linger's cultivation has greatly increased. This is something worth celebrating. In the future, she will at least have the ability to protect herself." Linger was like Tang Seng's meat. If she did not have the ability to protect herself, anyone could take a bite out of her. That would be truly dangerous. The night was like water. Everyone went to bed early. Tomorrow morning, the 4 symbols venerables would finish repairing. In the night, rustling sounds could be heard in the forest. Little White, who was lying on Tang Zhang's bed, twitched its ears and immediately stood up. It stared out of the window and squeaked. Tang Jing got up and touched Xiao Bai, saying, "There's movement." Xiao Bai nodded seriously. "Looks like the 100 Faces Star Sovereign realized that he was tricked by me, so he chased after me," Tang Jing said thoughtfully. He got off the bed and walked out, only to find that the other 3 had also come out. They looked at each other, and Tang Jing said, "The 100 Faces Star Sovereign is here. Humph, let's make sure he doesn't return this time," the Empyrean Fairy said. She knew how powerful the 100 Change Starlord was, so she did not swear that she would definitely get rid of him. For experts of their level, it was easier said than done to get rid of him. She threw it into the sky, and with a flash of light, the beast disappeared without a trace, sucked into the mountain river map. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign's eyes flickered, and he said in surprise, What a powerful magic treasure! It's actually a sacred weapon! Do you think you're the only one with a sacred weapon?" As soon as he finished speaking, the air in front of the 100 Faces Star Sovereign shook, and a black light flashed, and a black banner appeared. There were complicated patterns on the banner, and it gave off a mysterious feeling. "I'll let you have a taste of the power of my sky water banner," the 100 Faces Star Sovereign shouted, and with a wave of his arm, the banner flickered, and in the originally clear night sky, there was a bright moon, and the moonlight was like silver. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, and heavy rain poured down. The strangest thing was that there were no clouds in the sky. The pattering raindrops seemed to contain a mysterious power, falling from the sky, and all of them were directed at the Fairy of the Nine Heavens. The Empyrean Fairy became the target of public criticism, but her expression did not change, and she shouted, "Mountain River Map, absorb!" The Mountain River Map produced a terrifying suction force, and the overwhelming raindrops were all sucked into it, but the Empyrean Fairy was unharmed. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign did not care and shouted angrily, "This Mountain River Map is really not simple, but I haven't used the power of my Sky Water Banner yet. Continue to take the attack." The Sky Water Banner shook, and for no reason, a flood fell from the sky, as if it had the power to destroy everything. Like a raging dragon, it rushed toward the Empyrean Fairy. The Empyrean Fairy's expression turned cold, knowing that the power of this attack was far stronger than before. She did not dare to be careless, and shouted, "Do you think you're the only one who can summon water? My Mountain River Map contains everything in the world, how can it not have water?" She pointed her finger at the stately painting, and a torrential flood rushed out from the painting to meet the water column that was like a raging dragon. Boom! The two water columns collided in midair, and it was difficult to tell who would win, and they were in a stalemate. Both sides gritted their teeth and kept urging their power, trying to defeat each other in one go. However, this was obviously an extravagant hope. The two were evenly matched, and this kind of battle was a battle of attrition. As for the others, they had already chosen their opponents. Tian Chanzi originally wanted to deal with the giant, but Tang Jing beat him to it, and had already fought with the giant. Tian Chanzi had to fight with the other monstrous beasts. His power had increased greatly, and he was now a 9th grade Yuanying, which was far stronger than these monstrous beasts. Therefore, he was no match for them at all. One by one, the monstrous beasts fell at his feet, and blood flowed like a river. Linger did not stay out of it. She had never fought before, but now that her power had increased greatly, she could not help but join in the battle. There were also some monstrous beasts whose cultivation was lower than hers, so she had already defeated a few of them. However, there were many monstrous beasts, and it was her first battle, so she could not help but be flustered. In a moment of carelessness, a monstrous beast sneaked up on her from behind and slapped her with its claw, as if it wanted to smash her into a pile of minced meat. Squeak, squeak! Little White's voice suddenly rang out. A beam of fire shot up into the sky, and the raging flames wrapped around the demonic beast. It let out a miserable cry and hurriedly retreated. How could it have the chance to attack Linger? Tang Jing had specially instructed Xiao Bai to protect Linger. Xiao Bai was dutiful. How could he let these monstrous beasts succeed? Tang Zheng's battle was also very intense. The giant relied on its huge body to suppress him everywhere, causing Tang Jing to not dare to let his guard down. However, his War Soul sword had already become a sacred artifact. Even if it was the same heaven-flying immortal sword technique, its power would multiply in his hands. Swish, swish, swish! The War Soul sword had already opened a few huge wounds on the giant's body, causing blood to flow out. The giant roared a few times, but it did not fall down. Instead, its ferocious nature was aroused, and the more it fought, the braver it became. The giant did not have any magic treasures, and completely relied on its own body. Moreover, its body was as tough as steel, and if not for the War Soul sword being incomparably sharp, it would not have been able to harm it. The giant's lantern-like eyes stared fixedly at Tang Jing, and its fists and feet immediately followed the direction of its eyes and attacked Tang Jing. Bang! The attack missed, and a deep pit appeared on the ground. His arm directly swept across the city wall, and with a boom, a large hole appeared on the city wall. Tang Jing was shocked. This big guy's attack power was not inferior to the Four Symbols' Venerable One, and it had its own consciousness. If it was a one-on-one fight, it would be even stronger than the Four Symbols' Venerable One. The Four Symbols' Venerable One still needed his control in order to have such a powerful fighting strength. In ancient times, when the giant clan still existed, there were still quite a few of these giants. It could be seen how tragic the battle was. At the very least, the scene he saw from Chiyu's illusion was deeply engraved in his memory, something he would never forget for the rest of his life. When the giant saw that he was unable to attack Tang Jing from beginning to end, and that his body had been cut by the War Soul Sword instead, he was both angry and anxious. His attacks became even more ferocious, as if he had gone mad. In an instant, the city wall was almost completely destroyed by him, and deep pits of varying sizes appeared on the ground, as if it had been struck by a meteorite. Although Tang Jing was unable to kill his opponent immediately, fighting with an expert of this level was quite helpful in increasing his fighting strength. The more he fought, the braver he became, and the more proficient he became in the heaven-flying immortal's sword technique. The horizon gradually lit up, and when the first ray of sunlight shone on the ground, all that could be seen was a scene of devastation and corpses everywhere. Boom! Chapter 855. The Four Symbols Venerable opened his eyes. His eyes flickered with light as if they were alive. This was something that had never happened before. Boom! The four Symbols Venerables moved at the same time. They leaped over the crumbling walls and arrived in front of the giant. The giant was even taller than the four divine beasts. However, the four divine beasts exerted their strength together and coordinated their steps as if they were one. Boom! Boom! Four hammer-like fists hit the giant's waist. Roar! The Four Symbols Venerable let out a heart-wrenching scream as he staggered backwards. However, the Four Symbols Reverend did not give the giant a chance to catch his breath. With a flash of his body, he immediately grabbed the giant's forelimbs. Thump! The giant fell to the ground, causing the ground to tremble incessantly. It even crushed the few demonic beasts below into meat patties. Tang Jing watched this scene in astonishment. In the past, the Four Symbols Venerables required him to personally control them in order to unleash their enormous power. However, at this very moment, without his control, the might of the Four Symbols Supreme Beasts was even greater than before. Moreover, he saw a trace of spiritual aura in the Four Symbols Venerables' eyes. It was as if the Four Symbols Venerable truly possessed life. This was something that had never happened before. The eyes of the Four Symbols Venerables had always been filled with chaos. They did not have eyes at all. However, at this moment, they seemed to be human. Not only has the Four Symbols Venerable recovered, his strength has also increased by a level. In fact, he has even gained consciousness. Tang Jing's heart thumped violently. When the inner demons had told him about the four divine beasts, he had thought that the four divine beasts must have had consciousness. Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, the Four Symbols Venerables actually recovered their consciousness. This was truly too amazing. With self-awareness, the Four Symbols' strength was clearly a level higher than Tang Deng's control. His eyes were burning. He wanted to go up and help, but he found that there was no need for him. The giant's four limbs were grabbed by the Four Symbols Venerable. It struggled incessantly, trying to break free and regain its freedom. However, the Four Symbols Venerables held him firmly, so he couldn't break free at all. Moreover, the Four Symbols Venerables all ran in different directions. Boom! Boom! The ground trembled. The Four Symbols Venerables were like wild horses that had broken free of their reins. Not only were they powerful, but they were also very fast. Tang Jing had a flash of inspiration in his mind, and a word popped up in his mind: dismemberment by 5 horses. This scene was the best example. The 4 Supremes each charged toward the other, and in an instant, the giant's body was straightened. This time, with the help of the formation, it absorbed enough energy and awakened its consciousness. This is also a coincidence. Qi Yu immediately retorted. Tang Jing remained silent. He could not guess whether this was Qi Yu's doing on purpose for the time being. In any case, he would always be on guard against the two of them. The Four Symbols Venerable looked down at Tang Jing from above. Tang Jing raised his head and looked at it. When their gazes met, Tang Jing dismissed all distracting thoughts and ordered, "Deal with those monsters." The four symbols venerable did not say anything. It turned around and attacked the monster horde. Tang Jing could not figure it out anyway, so he might as well make the most of it. As for what would happen in the future, who could say for sure? With the addition of the four symbols venerables, the exhausted cultivators who had been besieged by the demonic beasts relaxed. They watched as the four symbols venerables slaughtered the demonic beasts in every direction. Their four gigantic bodies were like killing machines, extremely efficient. The corpses of the monsters were scattered all over the forest. Some were hanging from the treetops, some were in large pits, and some were lying in the ruins of the city walls. Tang Jing turned his gaze and stared at the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Faces Star-Lord who were fighting fiercely in the air. The two of them had already exchanged countless blows. All sorts of abilities were thrown back and forth. It was extremely intense. Tang Jing could not help but sigh in amazement. A battle of this level was truly fascinating. He could not help but look forward to when he could become so powerful. The Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Faces Star-Lord had profound cultivation. After fighting for half the night, they were not tired at all. They were still surrounded by danger. The four symbols venerable sky water banner summoned a torrential flood. After the Empyrean Fairy summoned the flood, she also summoned a huge mountain. It fell from the sky and smashed directly at the 100 Faces Star-Lord. The 100 Faces Star-Lord continuously channeled his power. The sky water banner flickered and the torrential flood blocked the huge mountain. However, the huge mountain was too heavy. It fell bit by bit, and the water spread in all directions. Boom! The water exploded and the huge mountain fell heavily. The 100 Faces Star-Lord was directly crushed under the mountain. The ground shook violently as if there was an earthquake. The four symbols venerable was crushed under the mountain. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Tang Jing was extremely shocked. He glanced at Tian Chanzi and Linga from the corner of his eyes. Linga was already dumbfounded. Her cherry mouth was wide open and her little tongue was sticking out. The mountain river map is actually so powerful. It can even summon a huge mountain. What else is in the map? The mountain river map was different from ordinary magic treasures. It had its own universe. It was like another world. It had mountains, rivers, plants, and trees, and could be summoned for one's own use. Tang Jing had also obtained the mountain river map before, but he could not use these magical powers. The Empyrean Fairy's expression didn't relax. She was still serious as she stared at the mountain without blinking. Suddenly, the huge mountain shook. Even the ground shook as if there was an earthquake. Tang Jing was shocked. He knew that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was not dead even after being crushed by the huge mountain. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out as the mountain exploded. Rubble flew everywhere like meteors, shooting in all directions. Dodge! Tang Jing stomped out and hurriedly stood in front of Linger to protect her. With the holy armor shield in front of him, a series of pun 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 sounds rang out as wave after wave of powerful energy surged out from the holy armor shield. The sorcerer tribe was in ruins. It was as if they had been hit and collapsed. There were deep pits on the ground, like the surface of the moon. The sorcerer tribe was the root of the sorcerer tribe. Now that it was destroyed, Tang Jing was heartbroken. If the sorcerer tribe saw this, they would be heartbroken. The rain of rocks stopped. Tang Jing removed the holy armor shield. The ground in front of him had completely caved in. It was a huge pit. The celestial master of 100 Faces stood in the pit in a sorry state. His clothes were in a mess, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His originally delicate face had turned blue, and his eyes seemed to spit fire as he stared at the Empyrean maiden. Where did your mountain river map come from? Why is it so powerful? The 100 Faces Star-Lord roared angrily. The Empyrean Fairy snorted and did not answer. Seeing this, the 100 Faces Star-Lord was angry and anxious. Obviously, the mountain river map was more powerful than his celestial water banner. Their cultivation levels were almost the same, but due to the difference in their treasures, he was no match for the Empyrean fairy. He was not reconciled. Previously, he was infatuated with the inner demons and was scared. Then, he was played by Tang Jing. Now, he was defeated by the Empyrean fairy who came out of nowhere. He was in a sorry state. This was simply a great humiliation. One had to know that even in ancient times, Multiform Star-Lord was a ruthless character. He had always been the one to bully others, and no one had ever bullied him. Therefore, he treated those weaker than him as toys. Back in Mount Buzhou, he wanted to keep Tang Jing and the others as his toys. But now, he realized that the power of the toys was too strong. It was beyond his imagination and his life was in danger. Run! Although he was burning with anger, he did not completely lose his mind. He knew that staying here would not do him any good. Moreover, Tang Jing and the others were watching from the side. He was especially wary of the Four Symbols Reverend. Just now, the Four Symbols Reverend had cleanly dismembered the giant he had painstakingly resurrected. This scene immediately reminded him of the stories he had heard about the Four Symbols Reverend before he was imprisoned in Mount Buzhou. The Four Symbols Reverend was not a kind person. He was ferocious and cruel. Moreover, the Four Symbols Reverend who now had his own consciousness was not the same as before. He was definitely a big threat to him. Chapter 856. 100 Change Star Sovereign's expression changed when his thoughts were seen through. However, he pretended to be calm and said, "I think you're the one who wants to escape." Empyrean Fairy laughed mockingly and said, "Is that so? Then let's see who will escape." With a point of her finger, the mountain and river map flew toward 100 Change Star Sovereign. The light of 100 Change Star Sovereign's sky water banner was very dim, and was far inferior to the mountain and river map. Seeing the mountain and river map flying over, 100 Change Star Sovereign did not dare to argue anymore. He jumped out of the deep pit and fled into the forest. Tang Jing and the others were dumbfounded. This 100 Change Star Sovereign was really a genius. He was still vowing to kill the Empyrean Fairy a second ago, and the next second, he was running away like a rabbit. He really escaped. "Do you think I'll let you have your way?" Empyrean Fairy said coldly. Just as she was about to chase after him, she heard a buzzing sound coming from the forest. The demonic beasts that had escaped were actually running back. Even 100 Change Star Sovereign retreated in a sorry state with an ugly look on his face. Whoosh! 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 A few huge demonic beast heads flew out from the forest and landed heavily on the ground, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Empyrean Fairy stopped abruptly and looked suspiciously at the dense forest. Even Tang Jing and the others quieted down and stared intently at the front. The buzzing sound became louder and louder. A few trees fell to the ground and a few spinning things appeared in the sky. The buzzing sound came from these things. These things looked like bamboo hats but were much bigger than bamboo hats. It was unknown how they could fly in the sky. "What are these?" the few of them muttered in their hearts. They could actually force the demonic beasts to retreat. Even 100 Change Star Sovereign had retreated. Tang Jing and the others looked at each other and shook their heads. Obviously, they did not know what these things were. 100 Change Star Sovereign's shoulder was dyed red. This was the blood that was not there earlier. Could it be that he was injured by these bamboo hat-like things? What was it that could injure 100 Change Star Sovereign? The few of them became nervous. Rustle! With a slight noise, a few silhouettes came out of the forest and stood at a distance. Tang Geng's pupils shrank because he saw a familiar face, Fair-Faced Flying Dragon. Fair-Faced Flying Dragon had disappeared without a trace after they parted ways in the mausoleum of the first Qin Emperor. As for his origin, Tang Jing had no idea. Seeing him again today, Tang Jing couldn't help but be surprised. Fair-Faced Flying Dragon had nearly died at the hands of Qin Shi Huang previously. Who knew what he was up to this time? Tang Jing's gaze swept past him, then he looked at the others. They were all unfamiliar faces, and the person standing at the very front was wearing a mask. A mask! Tang Jing's heart stirred as he faintly remembered the information he had searched for in Jian Shisun's mind using the soul-searching technique. Azure Dragon Hall's High Lord. Wasn't he just wearing a mask all the time? Could it be that fair-faced flying dragon was from the Azure Dragon Hall? Actually, fair-faced flying dragon was so powerful. In this world, other than the Azure Dragon Hall, there was no other place that had such a powerful martial artist. As for the other unfamiliar faces, as well as the bamboo hat that was spinning in the air, it made Tang Jing think of another thing. Flying guillotine. Legend had it that the Flying Guillotine was the most mysterious assassin team in the Azure Dragon Hall. Every one of them was at least a master-level martial artist, but no one had seen them in these past few years. This was probably the Flying Guillotine of the Azure Dragon Hall. 100 Change Star Sovereign stopped and asked in a flustered and exasperated manner, "Who are you people?" The High Lord took a step forward and said indifferently, "Azure Dragon Hall." His voice was neither fast nor slow, but it was full of pressure. It was as if he was speaking beside everyone's ears, causing their eardrums to hurt. "So you are from the Azure Dragon Hall?" Although 100 Change Star Sovereign lived in seclusion, he had already heard the name of this organization. "What martial artists?" In ancient times, martial artists and cultivators were of the same origin, but now they are killing each other. 100 Change Star Sovereign said. The High Lord said meaningfully, "With the times, this society is progressing. The situation in ancient times does not represent the current situation. Moreover, you cultivators have to fight to the death, so why can't we, martial artists, fight to the death with you cultivators? That depends on whether or not you have the ability." 100 Change Star Sovereign said hatefully. The High Lord laughed strangely and pointed at the bloodstain on 100 Change Star Sovereign's shoulder. "Haven't you already seen it? That was because you ambushed me. I was careless and fell into your trap." 100 Change Star Sovereign angrily roared. Just now, he was only concerned with escaping from the Empyrean Maiden, but he did not expect to be surrounded by the flying guillotine that fell from the sky as soon as he entered the forest. The flying guillotine almost wrapped around his head. If it had really wrapped around his head, he was afraid that his head would have been separated from his body. Fortunately, he had discovered it in time and quickly dodged. Otherwise, his shoulder would have been injured more than this. This group of people had a strong background. If it was one-on-one, 100 Change Star Sovereign was confident that he could deal with them all. However, when they were together, their strength was multiplied. Moreover, he had gone through an entire night of fighting and killing, so he had consumed a lot of energy. Moreover, he was already injured under that huge mountain, which was why he was in such a difficult situation. The High Lord laughed in a low voice. 100 Change Star Sovereign, if you are injured then so be it. You still have so many excuses. This is not the style of an ancient expert. 100 Change Star Sovereign's eyes trembled. You seem to know me quite well. Of course. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. I know a little bit about everyone's background. Otherwise, how would I dare to come here? The High Lord was full of confidence. Is that so? You really think that these people can deal with me? The High Lord said. Not only to deal with you, but also those people. He pointed at Tang Jing and the others. Tang Jing and the others' pupils shrank as they stared at the High Lord. This dance was really big. The Azure Dragon Hall had always been mysterious. It was fine if they did not appear, but when they did, they actually planned such a big scheme. It was shocking and also amazing the other party's ambition. The Empyrean Fairy stared at the other party. You boast that you know all of us. Could it be that you know me as well? The Great Lord pointed at the fair-faced flying dragon beside him and said, My Azure Dragon Hall's fair-faced flying dragon has met the mysterious maiden of the 9 heavens once. Of course, I can trace your origin and know your origin. The Empyrean Fairy's eyes flashed as she stared at fair-faced flying dragon without blinking, saying, I never thought that you would actually be able to escape from Qin Shi Huang's Taiya sword. fair-faced flying dragon chuckled. With a flick of his wrist, sword light flashed and a long sword filled with killing intent was placed horizontally in front of his chest. "Taia's sword!" Tang Jing and the Empyrean fairy cried out in alarm at the same time. Back then, Qin Shi Huang had used the Taia's sword to kill fair-faced flying dragon. Later on, the connection between the sword and the Qin Shi Huang was severed and its whereabouts were unknown. It turned out that fair-faced flying dragon had used some unknown method to steal the Taia's sword. Tang Jing was incomparably shocked. He had seen the Taia's sword's might before. Moreover, ever since he knew about saint weapons, he was certain that the Taia's sword was a saint weapon. Such a peerless saint weapon had actually fallen into fair-faced flying dragon's hands. Didn't this mean that his strength had increased greatly? In truth, fair-faced flying dragon had taken the risk to enter Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum in order to seize the Taia's sword. In the end, Qin Shi Huang had used the sword to kill him, which was exactly what he wanted. He had already thought of a foolproof plan to seize the Taia's sword. How could he fail? Thus, he secretly stole the Taia's sword. By the time Qin Shi Huang discovered it, it was already too late. At that time, fair-faced flying dragon had already escaped. Fair-faced flying dragon would naturally inform the High Lord of what had happened in Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. With the Azure Dragon Hall's power, it would not be difficult for them to find out the origins of the Empyrean fairy. Fair-faced flying dragon proudly laughed. "The two of you even recognized this sword. Back then, it was all thanks to you two holding back Qin Shi Huang that I had the chance to seize this sword. In truth, I never thought that Qin Shi Huang would be able to come back from the dead. If it wasn't for you two, I would have been killed by him. Speaking of which, I really have to thank the two of you," Tang Jing angrily said. "Fair-faced flying dragon, don't be so smug. Back then, you escaped so quickly, and now you're jumping out with such pride. In my opinion, the Azure Dragon Hall is only SOSO. The High Lord's gaze was cold as he stared at Tang Jing, saying, "The Azure Dragon Hall is not something you can judge. Tang Jing, in fact, I have already met you for a long time." "Met for a long time? Where?" Tang Jing curiously asked. "However, at that time, you were only a baby in swaddling clothes. You were born with the 9 yang saint body. This kind of person is a genius rarely seen in 10,000 years. How could I let you live? Thus, I ordered the martial sect's previous sect leader to kill you." Tang Jing's heart beat wildly as killing intent leaked out from his eyes. He clenched his fists until they made popping sounds. The two of them already had a feud. Back then, he was almost killed because of him. Tang Jing gritted his teeth and said, "You must be very regretful that you couldn't kill me." "There is a bit of regret. I never thought that Wu Junshan would be so powerful as to deceive everyone and allow you to escape." The High Lord sighed. Tang Jing thought about the torture he suffered when he was young and how he was lucky enough to almost lose his life. He was so angry that his eyes were about to spit fire. "You hate me, don't you? No, you should be thanking me. If I didn't want to kill you, how could you have been sent out of the martial sect? How could you have such a fortuitous encounter today? Bah, you still want me to thank you? Keep dreaming. Your achievements today have truly exceeded my expectations. If I knew your true identity earlier, I would have killed you earlier. It's just that your development has far exceeded my expectations, so I want to see just how far your 9 yang saint body can go. Unfortunately, the situation is becoming more and more chaotic. Even the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Change Star Lord have come out. I have no choice but to take action. Otherwise, if the chaos continues, it will not be good. As for you, I can still let you live because the Azure Dragon Hall has been peaceful for so many years. It is time for you to move around a bit. A blade that has been left out for too long has become blunt and rusty. It needs to be sharpened by a whetstone to become sharper. You are using me as a whetstone. You really are boasting shamelessly. Be careful that I don't break this blade of yours." Tang Jing was furious. This High Lord gave off an unfathomable feeling. He could not see through him at all. Chapter 857. Through the mask, the High Lord's eyes were filled with a disdainful smile, and said, "A whetstone is a whetstone. In the end, it is difficult to compare with a blade. Tang Jing, if you retreat quickly, I can spare your life." Pfft, wishful thinking! Tang Jing spat out a mouthful of saliva. The High Lord laughed meaningfully. "Before I kill you, is anyone willing to tell me why you are gathered in the 10,000 huge mountains?" Tang Jing suddenly realized that the other party did not know the purpose of their trip, nor did he know what happened in the canyon. "You won't know." Tang Jing cleanly cut off the other party's thoughts. The High Lord did not mind. "I will always have a way to know. If we don't agree, let's get down to business first." With a wave of the High Lord's hand, shwa shwa shwa, the others all rushed out, and in an instant, there were more than 10 blood guillotines in the sky. "Tang Jing, you killed the Sword God and the Sword 13, so you must know what this is. Today, I'll let you have a taste of it. Blood guillotine!" Tang Jing gritted his teeth. "Everyone be careful, this is a sharp weapon that New Era used to deal with cultivators. Many cultivators died under the blood guillotine." "What bullshit blood guillotine? If it wasn't for the sneak attack when I wasn't prepared, how could it have injured me?" The 100 Faces Star-Lord roared. "100 Faces Star-Lord, you and I are both cultivators. It's not too late to stop fighting after we deal with the people from the Azure Dragon Palace," Tang Jing suggested loudly, wanting to form an alliance. 100 Faces Star-Lord's eyes flickered. He hesitated for a moment, then agreed. "All right, I'll agree to it for the time being," Tang Jing said in a low voice that only he could hear. 100 Faces Star-Lord is very fickle. Even if he agrees, he can't believe it completely, so we have to be on guard against him at all times." Empyrean Fairy looked at Tang Jing with approval, as if to say that he was not stupid enough to know that the 100 Faces Star-Lord was not trustworthy. Hee hee, what a touching scene! Even sworn enemies can huddle together for warmth. If there are more such cultivators, then this world will really be in chaos. The Great Lord sneered. He moved later, but arrived first. He actually overtook the flying guillotine and pushed his hands forward. An earth-shattering aura swept over. "What a powerful skill!" Everyone had this thought at the same time. They had fought for an entire night, and had consumed a lot of energy. The other side was waiting for them to tire themselves out. Sure enough, they had the upper hand. "My non-phase method has not been shown to anyone for many years. Today, you are in for a treat." As soon as the High Lord finished speaking, that earth-shattering aura was already in front of them. The ruins on the ground flew up into the air, whizzing towards the crowd. "Everyone, hide behind me!" Tang Jing roared and waved his hand in the air. The holy armor shield stood in the wind like a pillar, blocking in front of everyone. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign did not seem to want to waste his energy, so he hid behind the holy armor shield as well. However, he deliberately kept a distance from them. Bang, bang, bang! The holy armor shield kept vibrating. Every time it hit, Tang Jing's heart would beat violently. His blood was almost boiling, and his face and ears were red. Squeak, squeak! Xiao Bai was indignant. In order to share the pressure of Tang Jing, he jumped up and spat out monstrous flames. The ruins turned into drops of heat in the flames and fell to the ground. The Empyrean Fairy activated the mountain river map. The map's suction force increased greatly, and a whirlwind blew. The ruins were sucked into the mountain river map. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign hid behind the crowd and watched coldly. He had no intention of helping. "Tang Jing, just take care of yourself. There is no need to be a shield for someone else." Tian Chanzi also shouted and stepped forward. Whoosh, whoosh! A few black shadows suddenly appeared in the sky, the flying guillotine. They arranged themselves in a circle and descended with a whistling sound, aiming for the heads of the people. "Be careful!" the Empyrean Fairy yelled. She pointed her finger above her head and shot it at the flying guillotine. However, the flying guillotine was like a slippery loach, cleverly dodging it. the flying guillotines seemed to be scattered, but there was actually a formation among them. They were interchanging with each other and were a whole. Tian Chanzi's eyes lit up. He said, "The flying guillotine is maintained by the formation. If we break this formation, they will naturally fall apart." Formations were not only used by cultivators, but also by martial artists. They could also study formations and use them in martial arts as well as when facing enemies. The Azure Dragon Palace had always been dealing with cultivators. Of course, they would not let go of such a method like formations. The opponents had more than a dozen Grandmaster warriors. If they fought alone, except for Linger, they would not be a match for the others. However, when they worked together and cooperated with the formation, their power increased sharply. The Great Lord was not surprised. He mocked, "You saw through my formation. Do you think you can break it?" The sky full of ruins had disappeared. The Great Lord was high in the air, looking down at them. He crossed his fingers and kept changing them. "He is making hand seals," the Empyrean fairy reminded. "Making hand seals? Didn't cultivators make hand seals when they used some secret techniques?" Seeing Tang Deng's suspicious eyes, Tian Chanzi explained, "Warriors and cultivators are the same. They can make hand seals. This is a common aspect. It's just that there are very few warriors who can make hand seals." This non-phase method is really strange. The Great Lord had finished making hand seals. His fingers crossed into a strange posture. He opened his mouth and a sound came out of his mouth. Bang! It was a simple syllable. It seemed that he had used up all his strength to make this sound. Not only did his chest and abdomen resonate, but this sound resonated with the heaven and earth. It was shocking. This was the first time Tang Jing had seen this kind of technique, and it was truly inconceivable. He was overwhelmed with shock as he felt a terrifying pressure descend from the heavens. Not only was it exerted on his body, it was also exerted on his spirit. For some reason, his movements slowed down as he watched the flying guillotine descend from the sky. However, he was powerless to stop it even though he had the will. "Damn it!" Tian Chanzi roared. His movements were half a beat slower, but he still wielded the long sword in his hand. Swish! The sword light broke through the sky and hit the flying guillotine. The flying guillotine was covered with a burst of blood, but it was not damaged at all. It was just that the momentum of the attack slowed down, giving Tian Chanzi time to dodge the attack. The Great Lord's attack was not a single attack. It was an indiscriminate and large-scale attack. The others were also affected, especially Linger. Her face was pale. The word almost shook her mind. The Fairy of the Nine Heavens and the 100 Transformation Star-Lord were the least affected. The 100 Transformation Star-Lord originally wanted to take advantage of the situation and not contribute if he could. However, as soon as the words were spoken, he knew that he could not stay out of this. "Go!" Empyrean Fairy summoned a flood and rushed to the flying guillotine above Tang Deng's head. With a bang, the flying guillotine was hit, and Tang Jing dodged a part of it. As for the flying guillotine that flew to Empyrean Fairy and 100 Faces Star-Lord, it did not hurt them. Although their movements were affected, it was not big. They finally understood that the flying guillotine's power was secondary. The most important thing was that the Great Lord's non-phase method was too strange. Combined with the flying guillotine, the lethality was really amazing. However, before they could catch their breath, the Great Lord opened his mouth again and another word came out. "Ma!" It was like thunder exploding in their ears, making their heartstrings tremble. An even more terrifying pressure came from all directions. Tang Zheng's face turned as pale as paper. Linger had softly fallen to the ground. This time, even Tian Chanzi's mouth twitched. What is the origin of this non-phase method? It's so strange. Empyrean Fairy and 100 Faces Star-Lord looked at each other and realized that this was an unprecedented crisis. If they had not experienced a night of battle, they would not be afraid. But after the battle, this was really a matter of life and death. Their movements also became slow. "Ma!" They had not yet moved when the third word came out. This time, not only did their movements become slow, but even their thinking was half a beat slower. Once his thoughts slowed down, his actions slowed down even more. It was even more difficult to avoid the flying guillotines that were eyeing him covetously. "Four symbols venerable, stop them for me," Tang Jing growled, but found that the four symbols venerable was motionless, as if he had really turned into a stone statue. "What's going on?" Tang Jing was aghast. Even the four symbols venerable had lost his effect. "This non-phase method communicates with heaven and earth. Don't look at it with only a few words and simple syllables. Each syllable can be synchronized with heaven and earth's aura and achieve resonance. This is the key. I don't know who created such a magical technique. It's really a genius," Chiyu exclaimed. "Don't just praise. Tell me, what should we do?" Tang Jing complained. "This non-phase method seems to have a particularly obvious effect on the murderous aura. The four symbols venerable's murderous aura is the strongest, so when it is suppressed by this power, it is like a mountain. Don't count on it. There's a way." Tang Jing could not help but interrupt. "People with pure minds and no murderous intent may not be affected," Chiyu hurriedly said. The inner demon snorted. "Is there anyone in this world who has no distracting thoughts and a pure mind to such a state? I have seen countless people, but I have never seen such a person. The world is so big, nothing is too strange." "Inner demons, your words are too absolute," Chiyu retorted. "Humph, then you find one for me to see." Chiyu was speechless. He sighed and said, "This kind of person is really hard to find. However, from my observation, the Venerable Lord's non-phase method has not been used yet. I'm afraid there are other words behind it." As if to confirm his words, another word resounded through heaven and earth. This time, even ordinary people could feel a resonance between heaven and earth. Everyone's face changed. This kind of martial technique was unheard of and unseen. No wonder the Azure Dragon Palace Hall was so confident. They actually had such a big killing weapon. This time, the flying guillotine did not rashly fall down to attack them. It seemed to be brewing, waiting for the final blow. The Venerable Lord was still brewing. Obviously, there was still another move. Tang Jing was burning with anxiety. He constantly circulated his power to resist this strange power. However, the faster he circulated his power, the more violent the murderous aura in his heart surged. Instead, he felt more pressure. Chapter 858. Killing Intent. Who wouldn't have killing intent? Tang Jing was burning with anxiety. Suddenly, his gaze landed on Linger, who was lying on the ground, and an idea came to him. Linger's heart was pure, like a piece of white paper. Could she do it? But seeing her in pain on the ground, he had some doubts. But since things had come to this, he could only try his best to fight for that slim chance of survival. "Linger, listen to me. Get rid of all distracting thoughts, maintain your original heart, and don't think about anything else." Tang Jing's voice seemed to have a magical power. Linger gave in, and sound and hurriedly did as she was told. "Wow, Master, Linger is not feeling bad anymore." Linger stood up, extremely surprised. Her black eyes looked at Tang Jing curiously, not knowing what was going on. "Is there really a person with such a pure heart in this world?" The inner demons could not help but exclaim. Chiyu suddenly understood and said, "I understand." She had experienced a night of battle before, and her body was inevitably contaminated with murderous aura. Her temperament was affected, but her nature was simple and was not really affected, so Tang Jing asked her to get rid of the distracting thoughts. She drove the contaminated murderous aura out of her body and restored her simple nature. This non-phase method naturally could not hurt her. Hearing that, Tang Jing was overjoyed. This was truly a pleasant surprise, and immediately shouted, "Linger, the enemy's divine arts are extremely strange. This time everyone will have to rely on you." Linger said in disbelief, "Master, you guys are so powerful, but you still can't do anything. What can Linger do?" "Linger, you have to believe in yourself." There are some aspects in which you are stronger than us. Linger was extremely happy, and nodded happily. Really? Linger had always thought that he was a burden, and needed the protection of his master everywhere. Linger is too happy to be able to share master's worries. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth twitched as he forced out a smile and said, Linger used this heaven-shocking bow and shooting sun arrows to attack the High Lord. Tang Jing summoned the two divine weapons and handed them to Linger. Linger held on to the divine weapon, her heart surging as she said, Master, Linger will definitely work hard. The shooting sun arrow was aimed at the High Lord, shining with a cold light. At this moment, the fourth word slipped out of his mouth. Bah! Linger was not affected at all. She pulled the shooting sun arrow into the shape of a full moon. She loosened her fingers and the shooting sun arrow shot through the sky. Fair-faced flying dragon had been watching coldly from the sidelines, waiting for the final moment to deal a fatal blow to his opponent. However, before he could reach the final juncture, he was shocked to find that there was actually one person who was not affected. This person's strength was obviously weaker than the others, but why was she not affected? Before he could figure it out, he saw the person pulling the bow and pulling the arrow. He knew that Tang Jing had a divine bow, and this was definitely that divine bow. Fair-faced flying dragon's face turned pale when he saw the cold gleam of the arrow piercing through the air, aiming straight for the High Lord. Although the High Lord's non-phase method was powerful, when using it, one had to be completely focused. If someone was not affected and counterattacked, it would be fatal. At this moment, the High Lord was like a 3-year-old child, unable to resist at all. This was the shortcoming of the non-phase method, and fair-faced flying dragon was very familiar with it. In the past, the crisis of this shortcoming did not erupt, because once the High Lord used the non-phase method, no one would not be affected. But the strange thing was that this time, there was actually someone who was not affected. The High Lord had instead become a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. High Lord, be careful! Fair-faced flying dragon roared and flew towards the High Lord, trying to intercept the shooting sun arrow. However, when he entered this space, his movements immediately slowed down. This was because he was also affected by this space. However, this shout finally awakened the High Lord, and his eyes suddenly swept towards the shooting sun arrow flying towards him. He wanted to dodge, but he was powerless. He could only watch the shooting sun arrow approach him. With a puff, the shooting sun arrow pierced through his left chest and went through his body. Ah! The High Lord screamed in pain and fell from the air. Everyone felt their bodies loosen, and they regained their freedom. Linger covered her mouth and looked at the scene in disbelief. She did not expect that it would actually succeed and resolve the crisis. Counterattack! Tang Jing took the opportunity to shout, and stepped forward bravely. The War Soul sword pierced out to meet the flying guillotine in the air. The flying guillotine also attacked with all its might. Puff! With a loud sound, the flying guillotine was split into 2 halves. The person controlling it on the ground spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face darkened. The Empyrean fairy recognized the High Lord, and her figure flashed as she attacked the High Lord. The High Lord clutched his chest, and blood flowed out. His face showed annoyance and disbelief. Obviously, he did not expect that there would be someone who was not affected by his non-phase method. He was already injured, and was not the Empyrean fairy's opponent. He hurriedly retreated, but the Empyrean fairy followed him like a shadow, obviously wanting to get rid of him completely. Stop! You are not allowed to hurt the High Lord! Fair-faced flying dragon roared, and the Tai-Ah sword slashed towards the Empyrean fairy. Facing the Tai-Ah sword, the Empyrean fairy did not dare to take it lightly. After all, it was a sacred tool. Moreover, she was very familiar with the Tai-Ah sword, and knew how powerful it was. If you want to hurt the High Lord, you will have to step over my dead body. Fair-faced flying dragon was dead set on the High Lord, and his attitude was very firm. The Empyrean fairy snorted disapprovingly, and brought out the stately painting. A powerful suction force immediately enveloped fair-faced flying dragon. fair-faced flying dragon's expression suddenly changed. Whoosh! 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 Fair-faced flying dragon fiercely slashed a few times at the stately painting. The powerful sword she stirred the air, trying to break free from the stately painting's restraint. However, it was all in vain. Fair-faced flying dragon was a first-grade martial emperor, which was equivalent to a first-grade yuan. There was a huge gap between him and the Empyrean fairy, who was in the divine transformation realm. He could not resist at all. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign involuntarily rose into the air and flew towards the stately painting. No matter how he struggled, it was futile. Seeing this, the High Lord gritted his teeth and spat out the word me. The Empyrean fairy's movements were sluggish. Fair-faced flying dragon immediately broke free and landed on the ground, holding the High Lord. The High Lord weakly shouted, "Retreat!" Fair-faced flying dragon madly rushed into the forest, and his voice came from afar. "The flying guillotine is behind, stop them." In order to buy time for the High Lord to escape, he did not hesitate to sacrifice the flying guillotine. "Change formation!" More than a dozen martial masters shouted in unison. The flying guillotine changed formation in midair, and they shuttled back and forth. Their figures flickered, making it difficult to see clearly. "Attack!" With a loud shout, more than a dozen flying guillotine attacked the few people at once. They hummed and spun nonstop, like bloody mouths that were choosing people to devour. "A group of dragons without a leader, yet you still dare to provoke me. Humph, I'll kill you first and let you know the consequences of sneak attacking me." The 100 Faces Star Sovereign roared and rushed over. The celestial water banner shook, and a torrential flood appeared out of thin air, hitting the flying guillotine and breaking the formation. Once the formation was broken, more than a dozen martial masters were immediately revealed, and they were flustered. The 100 Faces Star Sovereign rushed in and killed 2 people with just a few moves. However, the 100 Faces Star Sovereign did not stop and rushed into the forest in the blink of an eye. "He's trying to escape!" Tang Jing shouted, wanting to chase after him, but was stopped by a few martial masters. "Damn it, get out of the way!" Tang Jing roared in exasperation, but the few of them were like a human wall, blocking in front of him, making it impossible for him to pass through. "Forget it, let's take care of these people first." After the Empyrean fairy finished speaking, she displayed her divine might, and Tian Chanzi and the 4 symbols venerable did not hold back either, killing in all directions. The group of martial masters finally could not hold on any longer. Under the circumstances of paying the price of a few lives, they fled in all directions. Obviously, they knew that if they fled together, their chances of survival would be even slimmer. If they scattered and fled in all directions, there would always be someone who would be lucky enough to escape. This method was extremely rare. Tang Jing had too few people on his side, and in the end, a few of them escaped. Tang Jing did not care about these small fries, but in his heart, he gradually understood that there was a discrepancy in the information he searched in Jian Shisan's mind. It said that the flying guillotine was invincible, and many cultivators had died in their hands. Now it seemed that the flying guillotine was powerful, but that was because they had not faced experts like the Empyrean Fairy and the 100 Faces Star Sovereign. Otherwise, the flying guillotine could only flee in all directions. Perhaps, the flying guillotine had to cooperate with the Venerable Lord to display its great power. Just like just now, if Linger had not insisted on coming together, then they would definitely have been in big trouble, and even had their heads cut off by the flying guillotine. Therefore, the rumors of the flying guillotine were not all nonsense. This was then, and now, and the situation was different. "Let's continue to chase after the Venerable Lord." Tang Jing did not want to let the tiger return to the mountain, and said decisively. Several people agreed. They all had a lingering fear of his non-phase method, so they really wanted to leave him in the 100,000 mountains. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several people shuttled through the forest, like ghosts. Their speed was beyond imagination. Suddenly, the sound of fighting rang out in front of them. They were overjoyed and chased after it. However, they only saw a figure fleeing far away. It was obviously the multiform star sovereign. There were many corpses on the ground, and only one person was left standing. However, his body was dripping with blood, and he was in a sorry state. Long Xianyuan! Tang Zheng was secretly shocked. He recognized that the other party was actually the patriarch of the Long family, and those who died were probably also from the Long family. Why would the Long family be in the 100,000 mountains? Seeing Tang Jing looking at him with an unfriendly expression, Long Xuanyuan's heart jumped wildly. This time, it was a very risky move for him to enter the 100,000 mountains. Although he grew up near the 100,000 mountains, his elders had warned him not to set foot in the 100,000 mountains. This time, he realized that Tang Jing's purpose in coming to Dianan was not simple. In addition, Tang Jing rushed into the 100,000 mountains in a hurry. He guessed that something big must have happened, so on a whim, he brought people to chase after him. What he discovered along the way was an eye-opener and a deep shock. However, before he could find Tang Jing, he found a person holding a masked man in a hurry and slipped away from them in the blink of an eye. Long Xianyuan was shocked. There was actually such a strong martial artist, but before he could say a few more words, he realized that another child had rushed over. This child actually did not distinguish between right and wrong, and directly started killing his people. Of course, he wanted to stop it, but found that it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. However, after the child killed his men, before he could kill him, he was chased by the pursuers. In the next second, he saw that the pursuer was actually Tang Jing. Chapter 859. Their eyes met, and Tang Jing and Long Xianyuan looked at each other in disbelief. Why are you here? Tang Jing's expression changed slightly. His two sword-like eyebrows were raised high, and he asked straightforwardly. He subconsciously thought of the conflict with Long Tingfei and Dianan. The Long family didn't have any reaction, so he didn't care too much. Now that he saw Long Xianyuan in the 10,000 mountains, he naturally thought that the other party was here for him. Long Xuanyuan's expression was complicated. The people he brought were all wiped out, and then he met Tang Jing and the others. He knew that if he said something wrong, it would lead to serious consequences. Tang Jing's strength was far superior to his. No one would know if he killed him in this desolate 10,000 mountains. Some time ago, there was a huge earthquake in the 10,000 mountains. I guessed that there must be a problem, so I came to investigate. Long Xianyuan replied without hesitation. This was indeed one of his goals. Who is he? Emperor Fairy and Tian Chanzi looked at Long Xianyuan lightly, not putting him in their eyes at all. Long Xianyuan also felt this contempt, but he didn't dare to refute. He had already guessed the identity of these two people. One was Tian Chanzi, and the other was the mysterious woman who helped him kill the sword god. Greater than or equal to, even though Long Xianyuan had seen enough big battles in his life, he still couldn't help but feel nervous when he saw these two people. I am Long Xianyuan of the Dianan Long family. Long Xianyuan introduced himself modestly. When Tian Chanzi heard this, he didn't have much of a reaction at all. He said directly, Why are we wasting time here? Hurry up and chase after the 100 Faces Star Lord. If we let him escape, it will be like looking for a needle in a haystack. The 100 Faces Star Lord was proficient in transformation techniques, and could transform into anyone. This was a skill that the 100 Faces Star Lord had never used before, so they were quite afraid. There's no need to chase, Emperor Fairy suddenly said. He has already escaped into the vast 10,000 mountains. There is nowhere to find him. Tian Chanzi glared at Long Xianyuan with an unfriendly expression. Long Xianyuan felt as if he had been locked onto by the god of death, and a sense of fear involuntarily rose in his heart. It's all his fault. If he hadn't delayed us, the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign definitely wouldn't have been able to escape, Tian Chanzi said coldly. Long Xianyuan wanted to defend himself, but he found that he was not confident enough. But in the end, he took a deep breath and mustered up his courage. he said hesitantly. Senior, is that child called the 100-change Star Lord? Actually, we can be considered to have delayed him a little. Although he lived in the vicinity of the 100,000 mountains, he did not know of the great name of the 100 transformation Star Lord like the Azure Dragon Hall and the Lee Palace. However, for a child to be called the 100 transformation Star Lord and be so feared by these people, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Although he had doubts in his heart, he still tried his best to explain himself. He was deeply afraid that the other party would really put all the blame on him. You still dare to quibble? Tian Chanzi shouted angrily. Although he was usually very gentle to Tian Chanzi, and even a little disrespectful to him, when facing the unfamiliar Long Xianyuan, he was still very imposing, causing people to not dare to resist. Long Xianyuan didn't know how to respond, and the fear in his heart grew stronger and stronger. At this point, he finally understood that no matter what grudges he had with Tang Jing had already left him far behind. If he recklessly wanted to take revenge, he was afraid that he would be the first to die, and then the unlucky ones would be the Long family. In fact, Long Xianyuan was very clear about what his son, Long Tingyu, had done. It was impossible to say that Long Tingyu's death had nothing to do with Tang Jing, but it was a bit far-fetched to say that it had too much to do with him. Long Tingyu was actually reaping what he had sown, and had only himself to blame. Although Long Xianyuan was very unwilling to admit this, he knew that this was the cruel reality. He was smarter than the other patriarchs in that he wouldn't go to a dead end. Such a long time was enough for him to calm down and think clearly about the cause and effect. If he wasn't such a person, he wouldn't have trusted Mu Hongyan so much and handed over all the properties of the Long family to her, letting her, a person with a different surname, take care of them. Moreover, Tang Jing had actually done a favor to the Long family, and Nana's life was saved by Tang Jing. If he stubbornly dealt with Tang Jing, not only would it be of no benefit to the Long family, it would also be ungrateful. As for Long Tingfei's death, how could the life and death of a side-branch rice bucket affect Long Xuanyuan's heart much? If it was said that before he entered the 10,000 mountains this time, he still had some hope in his heart to see if he could create some trouble for Tang Jing, but at this moment, this kind of thought had completely disappeared. He had already made up his mind to write off his grudge with Tang Jing. He had saved Nana's life and Long Tingyu's death had cancelled each other out. But the crisis in front of him was that Tian Chanzi seemed to have blamed him for the escape of the 100 Faces Star Lord, causing him to be in trouble. Looking at Long Xuanyuan's twitching mouth, Tang Jing couldn't help but think of Nana. After all, the other party was Nana's grandfather. Moreover, both of his sons had already died, so he was indeed a pitiful person. As for the Long family, Tang Jing didn't think that they could threaten him now. Therefore, whether it was for the sake of Nana or Mu Hongyan, he was prepared to let Long Xianyuan go. Tang Jing coughed, and stood up. Long Xianyuan looked at him in shock, not knowing what he was going to do. He was terrified to find that not only was he facing Heaven Monk, even he was facing Tang Jing, he was actually feeling fear in his heart, as if he was looking at a tall mountain. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He was really old, and he had to admit that he was old. Patriarch Long, I don't know why you entered the 10,000 mountains this time, but the 10,000 mountains is not a place you should come to. I'm sure you have experienced the danger just now. However, if you want to target me, you have to think twice before you act. For the sake of Nana and Sister Mu, I will not pursue this matter. Please do as you wish, Tang Jing said. Seeing that Tang Jing didn't pursue the matter, Long Xianyuan heaved a sigh of relief. He couldn't wait to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead and said, Tang Jing, you misunderstood. I definitely didn't mean to target you. As for the grudge between you and the Long family, I have thought it through. Nana and Hongyan have been taken care of by you. I haven't personally thanked you yet. There's no need to thank me. Sister Mu has helped me a lot. Moreover, I like Nana very much. I have always treated her as a sister. Long Xianyuan heaved a sigh of relief. he really didn't have any resentment. He asked nervously, "Then can I go and see Nana in the future?" The older generation valued the inheritance of the family very much. Long Xianyuan only had one descendant left, Nana. In his heart, he missed her very much. Tang Jing occasionally heard Nana mention her grandfather. He knew that Long Xianyuan had always treated her well. After pondering for a while, he agreed. This was Long Xuanyuan's right. "You are Nana's grandfather?" the Empyrean fairy suddenly asked. Long Xianyuan was even more nervous when facing the Empyrean fairy. He knew that this was the fierce person who killed the sword god. He hurriedly bowed slightly and said, "Yes. Nana is my disciple." The Empyrean fairy simply said this sentence, and didn't say anything else. Long Xuanyuan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He looked at the Empyrean fairy in disbelief. His granddaughter was actually a disciple of this person. This was really the Long family's fortune. Immediately, he bowed deeply to the Empyrean fairy and said, "It is the fortune of 3 lifetimes for Nana to be able to enter your sect. This old man thanks you." The Empyrean fairy looked at him indifferently and said, "I accepted her as my disciple because of her talent. It has nothing to do with you and the Long family." "Yes, yes." Long Xianyuan hurriedly nodded and didn't dare to refute. "But this is also a great fortune of the Long family. Can I ask you to let me play host after you leave the 10,000 mountains?" I said, "This has nothing to do with you." The Empyrean fairy refused. Long Xianyuan didn't dare to persuade again, but the wrinkles at the corner of his eyes were filled with joy. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he pointed in a direction and said, "There is an injured person going in that direction. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Heaven Monk snorted angrily, and rushed out as if he was flying. Tang Jing and the others no longer cared about Long Xianyuan, and shot out. Since they couldn't catch up with the 100 Faces Star Sovereign, they would chase after the Azure Dragon Hall's High Lord and Fair-Faced Flying Dragon. These 2 people would definitely escape from the 10,000 mountains. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. Long Xianyuan put away the shock on his face, hesitated for a moment, and also chased after them. This time, he didn't want to deal with Tang Jing, but wanted to see what he could do to help. The change in his way of thinking allowed both sides to bury the hatchet, and also gave himself and the Long family a chance to live. The few of them were as fast as lightning, shuttling through the dense forest. Suddenly, the Empyrean fairy shouted, "There is the smell of blood in this direction." The High Lord was injured, and the smell of blood was definitely the High Lord's. The few of them were shocked and chased forward. Sure enough, they saw a figure in front of them. It wasn't the High Lord or Fair-Faced Flying Dragon, but a member of the Flying Guillotine who had escaped earlier. The other party didn't seem to be surprised by the arrival of the pursuers. Instead, the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of complacency. "You want to kill the High Lord? Dream on. It seems that you guys expected us to chase after you, so you deliberately used this method to lure us here. In fact, the High Lord and Fair-Faced Flying Dragon have already escaped to God knows where, right?" Tang Jing saw through the other party's thoughts with a glance. The other party's eyes fluctuated violently, but he didn't say anything. Tang Jing understood. As expected, he guessed correctly. This High Lord was too smart. However, his left chest was pierced by the shooting sun arrow, and his heart should have been hit as well. Why wasn't he dead yet? Tang Jing guessed that the other party must have a special life-saving method. "Capture him alive!" Tang Jing decided to capture him alive and use the Soul Search to search for more information about the Azure Dragon Palace. The other party's expression changed greatly. He didn't resist, but raised his hand and slapped his own head. With the other party's strength, his head would probably explode like a ripe watermelon. "You want to die in front of me? Not so easy." Tang Jing learned from Jian Shisan's mistake, so he couldn't let the other party succeed. He stretched out his arm and used the swallowing heaven technique. A black hole appeared in his palm, and immediately sucked the other party into his palm and controlled him. Chapter 860. Tang Jing controlled the man and was about to use the soul-searching technique when he found that the other party had a sneer on his face. He was startled, and a bad premonition hit his heart. Sure enough, the other party's head tilted and he died. Under his control, the corner of his mouth overflowed with a trace of black blood. Poisoned! Tang Jing suddenly realized and pried open his mouth. Sure enough, he was poisoned. Although Tang Jing controlled him, he still triggered the poison and died immediately, not giving Tang Jing a chance. A great master martial artist was actually willing to give up his life like this. Tang Jing was extremely shocked. A great master martial artist was an extremely important existence to a family, but this person actually sacrificed himself without hesitation. What kind of existence was the Azure Dragon Palace that they could train such a person? Tang Jing was shocked. He loosened his hand and the other party fell to the ground. After such a delay, it was impossible for them to catch up to the High Lord, so they simply gave up on the chase. The others looked at this scene and were deeply shocked. Tian Chanzi said, "The Azure Dragon Palace will be our biggest threat. If we don't get rid of them, one day it will lead to a disaster." The Empyrean Fairy added, "The phaseless method is even more strange and unpredictable. I feel that the power of the phaseless method has not been fully exerted. Otherwise, I'm afraid its power would be even greater, and it would be even more disadvantageous for us. Therefore, we must figure out what kind of martial arts the phaseless method is." After saying that, she looked at Linger in surprise. She was the only one who was not affected by the phaseless method, so the breakthrough was naturally on her. Linger looked at the Empyrean Fairy blankly. Although she turned the situation around with her own strength, she was not clear about what was going on. Tang Jing knew that the Empyrean Fairy had not figured out the reason for the phaseless method, so he explained. "The horror of the phaseless method is that it affects almost everyone. As long as a person has murderous intent and hostility, and their heart is not completely pure, it is difficult to be an exception." "What did you say? Who told you that?" The Empyrean Fairy was shocked. "Chiyu." The Empyrean Fairy fell silent. Tian Chanzi's eyes also revealed a look of disbelief as he said, "We've been through so many battles, and the murderous aura has long since seeped into our bones. Even if it is an ordinary person, it is impossible to have a completely pure mind. The power of this non-phase method is too terrifying." Tang Jing nodded in agreement. "From this, it can be seen that this Azure Dragon Palace is indeed not just an empty name, but the real deal. I understand. Linger is a ginseng, and her mind is pure enough to not be affected by the non-phase method. I didn't expect that she would be the one to save us this time." The Empyrean Fairy had mixed feelings. Linger looked at everyone blankly. She didn't realize that she had such a big role. Looking at her ignorant appearance, Tang Jing smiled and said, "Linger, this time everyone was saved by you. Now you know how powerful you are, right?" Linger shook her head like a rattledrum, and said nervously, "Master, Linger is not as powerful as you say. Without you, Linger would not have been able to do this. Don't be modest. In addition, did you notice that when the Great Lord used the non-phase method, although we were all affected, he was also helpless and couldn't use other attacks? He had to rely on the flying guillotine to attack us. In addition, anyone who entered his attack range would be attacked indiscriminately. Therefore, the fair-faced flying dragon failed to save him." The Empyrean Fairy pointed out. Therefore, the Great Lord and the flying guillotine complemented each other. This is the most fatal method of the Azure Dragon Hall. Tian Chanzi concluded. Tang Jing nodded, admitting that what the two said was true. He added, "Therefore, to deal with the Great Lord, we have to rely on Linger." Suddenly, the three people focused their eyes on Linger. Linger felt an inexplicable pressure and said nervously, "Don't look at me, I'm really not that powerful." "Linger, don't belittle yourself. Be confident," Tang Jing urged. "Oh. But the most important point is that Linger's mind cannot be changed by pollution. Otherwise, facing the non-phase method will be in vain," the Empyrean Fairy said. Tang Jing and Tian Chanzi both nodded. This was the most important thing. To keep a person's heart, especially in this materialistic society, it was much more difficult than cultivating martial arts. Linger, did you hear that? Tang Jing asked. Linger nodded hesitantly. This is Master's order. Linger will definitely do it. It's not enough to rely on her own efforts. We have to make the people around her reliable enough. We can't let her hands be stained with the slightest bit of blood and evil aura. The Empyrean Fairy said. Tang Jing had to admit that the Empyrean Fairy was very thoughtful. Although it was very difficult, he still had to do it. Linger was like a national treasure that must be protected in all aspects, and not only to protect her from harm. I will order Yi Yuan to lead the elites of the Witch Clan back. Tang Jing didn't think that Me and the others could do this. They could do business, but they couldn't do anything about these things. In the past, he was afraid that the authorities or the Azure Dragon Palace would deal with the Witch Clan, so he placed them and the people of the martial sect on the island. Now that he had the Empyrean Fairy, at least the authorities wouldn't dare to act rashly. In addition, he had another layer of consideration. After all, the Witch Clan was the core of the Jiuli tribe. Qiyu had awakened again. If he didn't tighten his close relationship with the Witch Clan, if one day Qiyu left his body, would he take the Witch Clan back under his command? Tang Jing didn't want the Witch Clan to be taken back under Qiyu's command. Then he would summon the Witch Clan back and let them stay by his side to deepen the relationship between them. Of course, there was no need to make this thought public. Although Qiyu and the inner demons were in his body, Tang Jing's strength was no longer the same as before. His spirit was strong, so the two of them were unable to detect his thoughts. He was not afraid that Qiyu would know. In fact, even if he knew, Qiyu couldn't do anything about it. It's best that you have your own arrangements. Linger is the most important, we can't lose her. Empyrean Fairy emphasized. Whiz! Long Xianyuan also caught up. Seeing the corpse on the ground, the corner of his mouth twitched a few times. Seeing that the few of them were looking over, he quickly said, Tang Linger, Miss Tang has encountered some problems with the official cooperation with Dianan. I have a way to solve it. He did not hear the conversation between the few of them just now. It was purely to deepen the relationship between them. Tang Jing was also clear about this, but he did not make a decision immediately. Instead, he looked at Linger. Linger understood and said, Master, you make the decision. Linger will listen to you. Linger, this is your job. What do you think? Linger looked around and said, The scenery of Dianan is beautiful, and there are 10,000 mountains. Although it is dangerous, Linger also likes the environment here, so the cooperation with Dianan is quite good. It seemed that Linger really liked Dianan. Tang Jing nodded and said, Then it's up to you. You will be the tourism ambassador. Long Xianyuan was overjoyed and promised, Everyone, please rest assured. This matter will be done as soon as possible. Originally, Linger came for the cooperation, but the matter with Long Tingfei caused it to be ruined. With Long Xuanyuan's power, this was a small matter. Of course, he could turn the situation around. Linger smiled sweetly and politely nodded to Long Xianyuan to thank him. The monsters in the 10,000 mountains are either dead or have fled. The threat has been mostly eliminated. As for the 100 Faces Star Lord, it will be very difficult to find him, so there is no need to stay here. Tang Jing said. Empyrean Fairy glanced at Long Xianyuan. Long Xianyuan was very smart, and immediately retreated far away. He knew that they had something to talk about, and did not want him to know. Although he was curious, he did not dare to eavesdrop. I want to go to Mount Buzhou to take a look. Empyrean Fairy said that before coming, Tang Jing had already told her about Mount Buzhou and the 100 Faces Star Lord. She was naturally very curious. The 100 Faces Star Lord is definitely not in Mount Buzhou, Tang Jing said. I'm not looking for him, I'm looking for Mount Buzhou. Empyrean Fairy insisted. All right, let's go to Mount Buzhou. Tang Jing was actually not too willing to expose Mount Buzhou in front of too many people. After all, Mount Buzhou was related to the Heaven Stairway, and furthermore, Yan Qingyi's prophecy also involved Mount Buzhou. However, Emperor Fairy was not an outsider, so he had no way to refuse this request. Patriarch Long, let's part ways here. You don't have to follow us anymore, understand? Tang Jing called Long Xianyuan over and warned him. Long Xianyuan understood that the other party was going to do something secretive. If he continued to follow them, he would be asking for trouble. He promised and said that he would immediately go back and prepare for Linger's tourism ambassador. After bidding farewell to each other, Tang Jing and the rest rushed towards Mount Buzhou and entered the prehistoric heavenly tomb once again. Occasionally, there would be monsters appearing, but they were extremely weak. When they saw these people, they would run in all directions. The demonic beasts were not idiots. Even their master, the Hundred Faces Star Lord, had failed, so how could they dare to compete with Tang Jing and the rest? Tian Chanzi looked at the messy prehistoric heavenly tomb, especially the tombstones that had fallen to the ground. Tian Chanzi sighed with emotion. I'm afraid that even in their dreams, these experts would never have thought that they would suffer such a great crime after death. This Hundred Faces Star Lord is truly too despicable. I'm guessing that the Hundred Faces Star Lord will probably leave the 10,000 huge mountains. There's nothing left for him here. In the future, he could be anyone, and the threat to us would be even greater. Tang Jing sighed faintly. How could everyone not know this? But there was nothing they could do. Gradually, Mount Buzhou appeared in their line of sight. It was covered in white snow and the mountainside was shrouded in clouds, making it impossible to see through. Emperor Fairy stared blankly at Mount Buzhou and said, When I was young I heard my father mention Mount Buzhou, but at that time Mount Buzhou was already broken, and no one knew where Mount Buzhou was. I never thought that it would actually be hidden here. Mount Buzhou is connected to the sky beyond heaven. If we rebuild the Heaven Stairway, we can go to the sky beyond heaven and bring the others back. Tian Chanzi had always been thinking about this matter. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.